Welcome to the Paranormal M channel. Been having a hard time sleeping lately? Don't worry, we've got you. We hope these creepy, mysterious stories help you relax and drift off. That's one of the things I love most about this job, getting to be here with you and helping you sleep better. Thanks so much for sending in your experiences. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Now grab your blanket, put on your headphones, turn on a little nightlight, and let's dive into today's mysteries. So this isn't one of those stories where I saw something. It's weirder than that, because it's something my sister and I both heard, plain as day, when we were kids. We used to spend a week or two every summer at our family's lake house. Not a fancy place, more like an old, stubborn cabin that refuses to stop creaking. You know the type. Drafty corners, the occasional mouse in the walls, floors that complain when you so much as breathe wrong. But we adored it. It sat right up against the tree line, like the woods had decided to lean in close and never back off. The house had 2 main floors, plus a basement, and this cramped attic nobody ever talked about. Huge windows too, especially downstairs. At night, with the lights on inside and the darkness pressed up against the glass, it always kind of felt like the forest could see you better than you could see it. Anyway, my sister Kara and I had this little tradition. When the adults went to sleep, we'd stay up late watching cartoons, whisper laughing so we wouldn't get caught. That particular summer, we were there with our grandparents and our Aunt Marisol, and they were all upstairs asleep. It had to be around maybe 2:40 or 3 in the morning. We were sprawled out in the living room with the TV on, some bright, obnoxiously cheerful cartoon, the kind that makes your brain feel fizzy when you're overtired. And then we heard it. At first, I thought it was part of the show, like a sound effect. But then it happened again. Heavy footsteps from above us. Not a creak, not a settling house noise. Actual, deliberate thuds. Like someone in boots walking with purpose. Kara and I just stared at each other, like our faces were asking the question our mouths were too scared to say. I reached for the remote and turned the volume down. And that's when it became unmistakable. You could hear a slow, steady pace, moving like it was circling. Step, step, step. As if someone was walking laps in one spot. The second the TV went quiet, the footsteps slowed, then stopped, like whatever it was had noticed us noticing it. We sat there frozen for a minute, trying to decide if we were being ridiculous. Then, after a while, we turned the TV back up, and the footsteps started again. Not constantly, but enough that the whole night became this awful little game. Cartoons on, footsteps above. Cartoons quieter, footsteps clearer. Like the house was keeping time. Eventually, Kara whispered something like, "Okay, nope, I'm done." And honestly, same. We went upstairs around 3:20-ish, clutching that brave but not brave feeling kids get, and we crawled into bed in the room we shared. Everything upstairs was silent. We peeked into the hall, even checked on our grandparents. My grandpa was dead asleep, snoring softly. My aunt was out cold. No one had been walking around. No one. Kara fell asleep fairly fast, like her brain decided to shut off rather than deal with it. But I stayed awake, still tense, listening for anything. About 15 or 20 minutes later, it happened again. Only now it was closer. Because my room, our room, sat directly under the attic. And those footsteps weren't just overhead in the somewhere upstairs way. They were right above me. Thud, thud, thud. I remember lying there thinking, okay, think like a normal person. We did have mice sometimes, but mice don't sound like that. Mice make little skitters, little scratches. And now that I think about it, we hadn't even heard mouse noises in a long time. And the attic, nobody went up there. Nobody. Morning couldn't come fast enough. When we finally got up, I went straight to my grandfather, Theo, my grandpa, because he was the kind of person who always had an explanation for everything, even if it was half-guessed. I asked him about the attic. He didn't even look concerned. He just pointed toward this small attic door at the end of the hallway, and it was wrapped with a chain and a padlock, like somebody had decided a long time ago that whatever was up there should stay up there. Grandpa Theo shrugged and said, "Probably a raccoon on the roof." Like that answered everything. I told him, no, it was inside. It sounded like it was walking on the attic floor. He kind of chuckled and said he couldn't even remember the last time they opened that door, and that he had no idea where the key was anymore. That was the end of it, as far as the adults were concerned. But I'm telling you, those footsteps were too heavy to be imagination and too close to be on the roof. They had weight to them. The kind of sound that makes your stomach tighten because your body recognizes it as someone moving nearby. And the thing I always come back to is this. If I was just a kid making it up in my head, why did Kara hear it too? We're grown now, and we still talk about it sometimes, usually when the conversation gets quiet and someone brings up the lake house. And every time, there's this pause. Because even saying it out loud feels like inviting it back. I don't remember it ever happening again after that night. No repeat performance, no slow circles above the ceiling. Just that one strange, heavy pacing in the attic. Like something was up there, walking laps in the dark, while two kids tried to pretend cartoons were louder than fear. Hey, have you ever stumbled across a story that sticks to the back of your mind, like you can't quite shake it off? That's how I felt the first time I heard about something people call gong tao, though depending on who you ask, you might hear a different name. Some folks describe it as a curse. Others swear it's a kind of spiritual taming, the sort of hidden craft that's traveled quietly for centuries, changing shape as it crossed borders, picking up new rituals, new fears, new warnings. And I know what you're thinking. Is any of this real? I can't prove it is, but I can tell you this. People have believed in it long enough for the belief itself to become powerful. So let me walk you through it the way it was told to me. It starts far back in time, in the misty parts of southern China, places where mountains press close and old traditions live on in small villages. An elderly storyteller I'll call Madame Li Hua once said the earliest threads were tied to secretive sorcery practiced among hill communities, passed down in fragments, guarded like family heirlooms. Over time, those methods drifted outward, through traders, migration, war, marriage, until they seeped into neighboring regions across Southeast Asia. And here's where it gets eerie. As the stories traveled, they didn't fade. They adapted. Some versions link gong tao to Taoist ritual traditions, especially the kind people whisper about rather than explain. Madame Li Hua mentioned an old tale from classical literature where a holy traveler faces a river spirit, an encounter that, in some tellings, hints at early binding rituals. Words meant to trap, symbols meant to direct, vows meant to twist fate. Whether that connection is historical or just storytelling, who knows? But it gave the curse a kind of legitimacy in people's minds, like it belonged to a longer, darker lineage. By the time these beliefs took root in places like Thailand, Cambodia, and Malaysia, they weren't just Chinese magic anymore. They fused with local spiritual systems, ancestor traditions, spirit lore, temple teachings, folk healing. And that fusion is part of why the legend survived. It learned how to speak each culture's language. Now, what is Gong Tao supposed to be? The simplest way I've heard it explained is this. It's not one spell. It's a system. A practitioner, let's call him Kun Sumchai, because that's the kind of name you hear in the Thai versions, doesn't just wave smoke and chant. The work is said to rely on intent, ritual structure, and tools. Things like whispered incantations, folded talismans, oils, powders, sometimes even poisons. And what makes it feel especially personal, especially terrifying, is that the target isn't random. The practitioner might use a person's birth date, their full name, a strand of hair, a scrap of clothing, something they've touched, anything that feels like a spiritual handle to grab onto. People translate the idea in different ways, but one common explanation goes like this. Gong is the method, the craft, the technique. Tao is the head, the person being influenced, the one being tamed. And once that link is made, the stories say the victim can start to unravel. Some versions focus on the spiritual side. Sudden dread, nightmares, hearing voices, seeing things that aren't there. A fog settling over the mind. A sense of being watched. A sense of not being fully yourself. Other versions get more physical, and honestly, those are the ones that unsettle people most. Because in certain legends, Gong Tao isn't just energy, it's poison. And then there are the talismans. I've heard people describe them as if they're instructions written for the unseen world. Not just paper, permission, a channel, something that helps focus the practitioner's will and send it where they want it to go. Now, the reason Gong Tao feels so sprawling is because it doesn't have one single form. It shifts by region. In one place, the stories revolve around mind control, a kind of spiritual pressure that makes someone panic, hallucinate, or act wildly out of character. In another place, it's sound and chanting, incantations repeated in a certain cadence, with objects that amplify the effect, like the victim's thoughts are being stirred into chaos. Some versions talk about medicine methods, using disturbing ingredients, oils taken from the dead, insect eggs, hair, powders, things meant to disgust you, which probably adds to the fear. And in parts of Thailand and Malaysia, the most infamous stories are the ones about love. Not sweet love, not romantic love, the kind that feels like obsession, like your heart doesn't belong to you anymore. People call it a charm that can tie someone to you, make them crave you, make them abandon reason, or, in darker versions, make love rot into revulsion overnight. The point isn't affection. The point is control. Then there are the truly supernatural tales, the ones you hear late at night when nobody wants to look out the window. A wandering auntie I'll call Soraya once leaned in and whispered about a floating head variant, where the practitioner's head is said to detach and drift through the dark in search of the target. I'm not telling you that to convince you it's true. I'm telling you because these are the stories people grow up with. Stories that make you keep the light on, even when you laugh at yourself for doing it. And whether the curse is spiritual, psychological, or chemical, people describe the effects in three main waves. First, the body. Unexplained aches, sudden fatigue, sharp pains, stomach twisting, migraines that don't respond to anything. In the most extreme stories, bleeding, collapse, organ failure. The scariest part is always the same. No one can find the cause. Second, the mind. Anxiety that blooms into terror, paranoia, depression, hallucinations, a sense of being trapped in your own thoughts. Some stories get very dark here, talking about impulses that feel alien, anger that erupts without warning, despair that doesn't match your life. Third, behavior. People making choices that destroy them, turning against loved ones, becoming hostile, impulsive, reckless, like the person you knew is still in there, but somebody else is pulling the strings. And when it gets to that point, the legends say the victim rarely fixes it alone, because the cure if you can call it that, usually involves someone trained in spiritual protection, an experienced ritual specialist, a monk, an elder healer, someone believed to know how to cut the thread. They might burn talismans, wash the body in blessed water, pray for days, perform cleansing rites meant to push out what doesn't belong. In many communities, that ritual isn't just magic. It's a form of care, a way of restoring order when life feels like it's slipping into chaos. And prevention? The warnings are always practical, almost mundane. Don't accept strange gifts too easily. Be careful with personal items, hair, nails, clothing. Don't bring unknown charms into your home. If you feel like something is wrong, talk to someone you trust, someone grounded, someone who can help you separate fear from reality. Because here's the part people forget. Even if Gong Tao is only folklore, folklore shapes behavior. It shapes choices. It shapes how communities explain suffering and injustice when answers don't come easily. That's why this legend has lasted. So, do I think Gong Tao is real? I think the story is real. I think the belief is real. And in some places, that belief is strong enough that it still changes how people live, who they trust, what they fear, what they refuse to touch. And honestly, that alone is chilling enough. You know, there are places that look completely ordinary in the daytime. Kids running around, laundry swaying on bamboo poles, aunties bargaining over fruit, and yet the ground underneath feels like it's holding its breath. That's how I felt the first time I really paid attention to Crosshead Lane. Well, people today call it that more casually, but the old name still clings to the walls. It sits over in Kowloon, tucked inside a district that's always buzzing, always moving. On the surface, it's just another public estate, crowded, practical, alive. But if you stand still long enough, you can almost hear the past knocking from behind the concrete. And the past here isn't gentle. Locals told me the name didn't come from some poetic legend. It came from something ugly, something meant to scare people into silence. During the occupation years, this area wasn't apartments and playgrounds. It was a place where men were detained, questioned, broken. People said that when executions happened, the remains weren't treated with dignity. Heads were displayed along a stone boundary, like warnings pinned to the land itself. Even the language around it changed over time. Someone once told me it might have started as a phrase closer to beheading wall, and then softened into something people could say without tasting iron on their tongue. Either way, the meaning stayed. And once a name like that is born, it doesn't really die. After the war, the city tried to heal the way cities always do, by building over the wound. In the years that followed, the land was cleared and reshaped. What had once been tied to graves, an old burial ground people remembered by nicknames and directions, the way elders do, was gradually emptied to make room for housing. Families were moved in. Survivors, working people, folks who needed a roof more than they needed answers. The estate rose up like a promise. Here, start again. But some places don't let you start clean. The stories I heard weren't dramatic at first. They were small, almost embarrassingly ordinary, the kind of thing people mention quietly while pretending they don't believe it. A corridor that always felt cold, no matter how sticky the summer got. Footsteps pacing above you when the upstairs flat was vacant. A faint crying sound, thin, far away, drifting through the stairwell at 3 a.m, even though everyone's doors were shut and locked. And then there were the ones people hesitated to tell, like they were worried the telling alone might invite something. A security guard named Mr. Liang, or maybe it was Uncle Liang, depending on who you asked, swore he once saw a figure at the end of a hallway. Long hair, pale dress, standing too still. He blinked, looked away for half a second, and when he looked back, the corridor was empty. Except for the feeling that someone was still there, watching him from the corners where the fluorescent lights didn't reach. That's the thing people always describe the same way. Not just seeing something, but feeling it. Like the air gets heavier. Like your lungs have to work harder. Like the building is listening. The residents tried to do what people here have always done when a place feels unsettled. They gave it respect. Years later, a small temple went up nearby, funded quietly by neighbors, shopkeepers, families who'd lived there long enough to stop laughing at the rumors. They dedicated it to the earth god, the kind of guardian people turn to when the ground itself feels offended. They lit incense. They offered fruit. They asked, in the simplest way, "Please, let everyone rest." If you've never seen those ceremonies up close, it's hard to explain. There's this strange tenderness to it. You'll see offerings laid out like a meal prepared for invisible guests, incense curling into the night air, ritual words murmured in steady voices, not theatrical, more like a lullaby meant for souls that never got comfort in life. Some years, they even set up performances, simple operas, bright costumes, loud drums, meant to entertain spirits who might be wandering hungry and bored. And here's what gives me chills. The front row of seats is sometimes left empty on purpose, reserved, not for the living. Even with all that, people still said the place wasn't fully quiet. Rumors kept piling up like dust in the corners. More than one person told me they'd heard marching at night, boots in rhythm, moving through streets that were completely still. Not the sharp stomp of modern shoes, but something older, heavier. And every time someone mentioned it, they lowered their voice like the sound might hear them back. There were stories, too, about those old underworld figures, Oxhead and Horseface, appearing in the dark, not exactly seen, but sensed. Like the warning before an accident, like a shadow that feels deliberate. Folks would say, if you meet them, don't look too long. And then they'd change the subject, fast. One story that stuck with me happened in a small park nearby. A woman, people called her Mei Lin in one version, Ah Yu in another, had taken her own life years ago. The way they told it, her spirit didn't roam angrily. It returned with a kind of sad routine, placing offerings for herself like she was still trying to take care of the person no one saved. Residents avoided that park at night, not because they feared she'd hurt them, but because the loneliness of it felt unbearable. And then there's always a music story in places like this, isn't there? Kids swore they heard piano notes drifting from a flat that had been empty for months. Simple melodies, the kind you'd practice slowly as a beginner. Not a full song, just the same few bars repeating, like someone was stuck on a memory and couldn't move on. Of course, the estate has its headline stories too, the ones that get retold so many times they start to sound like urban legends you'd hear at a late-night diner. There's the tale of the lost boy, a child with a face too pale, eyes too flat, wandering the street and asking strangers, very politely, how to get home. People said the scariest part wasn't the question. It was that when someone tried to help, the child would point toward buildings that no longer existed. Then there was this incident decades back. Someone I heard called Chung Wai, though who knows if that was his real name, who attended a ritual and came out wrong. Friends said his voice changed. His temper snapped like thread. And then he developed this sickening craving for raw pig head meat, demanding it like it was the only thing that could quiet the hunger inside him. People whispered about possession, about something latching onto him during the ceremony. The story spread fast enough that even newspapers poked at it, half skeptical, half fascinated. And the most famous figure of all, the one everyone seems to agree on, was the long-haired woman. They say she died violently during the occupation years. Some claim she was murdered for resisting. Others say she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But everyone describes her the same, hair spilling forward like a curtain, drifting through the misty streetlights late at night, not walking so much as gliding, like the ground refuses to touch her. It's the way public estates like this can feel after midnight. Narrow corridors, echoing stairwells, lights that flicker and hum. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, but expectant. These buildings hold thousands of lives stacked on top of each other. And when you add the weight of what the land used to be, detention grounds, graves, suffering, it starts to feel like the present is just a thin layer laid over something still restless underneath. So whether you believe in spirits or not, I get why people talk about Crosshead Lane the way they do. Because some places don't just have history. Some places have leftovers. And if you ever find yourself there late at night, walking alone, hearing a faint cry that doesn't match any open window, just keep your steps steady. Don't run. Don't look too long into the dark corners. And if you smell incense when no one nearby is burning any, maybe just whisper something respectful, just in case someone is listening. Okay, so, you know how people say animals don't lie? Like, they don't perform or exaggerate just to make a point. That's why I can't shake what happened last night. Because my dogs reacted in a way that felt unmistakably real. So I live and work on this old farm property. I'm basically the live-in caretaker. It used to be a dairy farm a long time ago, like early 1900s, and later it got turned into this small flower operation. It's beautiful during the day, fields, sheds, the whole thing. But at night, there's just a lot going on. Little sounds, weird knocks, movement when nothing should be moving. And the worst of it, like the place where it all seems to collect, is this massive old barn on the back stretch of the property. It's huge. It used to be where the cows would come in from the pasture, and now it's mostly storage and flower prep. Buckets, tools, shelves, stacked crates, all that. My partner, Rowan, calls whatever is in there the thing that gives the heebs and the jeebs, which is funny until you're standing near it and you realize you're not laughing. Because we've heard things in that barn. Not just settling wood, I mean, a low man's voice murmuring like it's talking to someone. Whistling, like someone trying to call the dogs by name. Heavy rustling through stored stuff that's too big to be a raccoon or a cat. Scraping sounds against the boards. Once, I heard this deep, irritated growl, like it came from a chest bigger than it should have been. But we never actually saw anything. Not clearly. Not until last night. So I'm doing my usual night walk with my dogs. My older boy, his name's Moose, he's getting up there, so I watch him close. My other dog, Tansy, is younger and fearless, and always wants to sprint off and patrol like she owns the land. I've got my phone out with the flashlight on, not because I'm scared, but because it helps them see where they're stepping. Moose is sniffing around the farm truck, taking his time, and Tansy takes off toward the back like she always does. And while I'm waiting, I notice something moving near this line of bushes. Not far, but far enough that the light doesn't hit it clean. The beam kind of diffuses in the cold air, so at first I only catch shape, color, this pale, sandy tan. My brain immediately goes, deer, right? Long neck, tall shape, the size checks out. But the thing is, it wasn't looking at the dogs. It wasn't watching me. It was just angled away, like it didn't care that I was there. Almost absent, like it was listening to something else entirely. Then it turned its head toward me. And I swear to you, swear on everything I love, it changed. Not like, oh, I realized what it was, changed. Like it compressed. Like the tall shape folded down into something else. And suddenly it was very, very clearly a coyote. Close enough that my stomach dropped. close enough that all I could think was, that is too close. That is too close to my old dog. I blurted out loud, like an idiot. Oh my God, it's a coyote! Moose, now! And the second the words left my mouth, it was just gone. Not ran off, not slipped behind the brush. Gone. And Moose, my sweet, slow, arthritic old man, moves like he's got one speed these days. But last night, he moved. I have not seen that dog hustle like that in years. Head down, ears pinned back, eyes huge, like full-on panic. He trotted straight to me and pressed in behind my legs like I was a shield. And that's the part that keeps replaying in my head. Tansy didn't seem to notice at first. She came back about a minute later, tail up, totally pleased with herself. But when she saw me and Moose frozen, both looking in the same direction, her whole body shifted. She stopped, stared into the dark for maybe 2 seconds. 2 seconds, that's it. And then she turned around and immediately wanted to go inside. And Tansy is not the let's go inside type. She's the one more lap type. So when she decided we were done, I didn't argue. We basically tripped over ourselves getting back to the house, and I know how this sounds, believe me, I do. I didn't even think to record, even though my phone was right there, because I wasn't thinking about proof. I was thinking about my 13-year-old dog and the fact that it's that time of year where coyotes can get bold. But here's what I can't get past. It didn't behave like a normal animal, and it didn't leave like one either. And I'm sensitive to things. I've always been. I don't even like saying that out loud because it makes people roll their eyes, but I can feel when something is off. This presence we've dealt with on the property, sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's like it's just tolerating us. But most of the time, it gives off this very clear message. Don't test me. Like FAFO energy. Hard. It keeps the dogs away from that barn. It keeps me from wanting to be outside at night, which used to be my favorite time to breathe and enjoy the quiet. And now I'm sitting here asking myself what I actually saw. If it was something pretending, or something wearing a shape, or something that knows this land better than I ever will. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Because when your dogs confirm it, when they react like that without you cueing them, it stops being maybe I imagined it and turns into this awful, heavy, okay, so what is it then? So this happened when I was 9. It was the spring of 2010, and I'd begged my mom to let me have a sleepover. I had a few friends from school over, Mason, Talia, and this kid named Jules, and we did exactly what you'd expect a bunch of 9-year-olds to do. Pizza grease on our fingers, loud laughter bouncing off the walls, and hours of taking turns on an old console until our eyes felt sandy. The living room looked like a tiny tornado had touched down. Blankets everywhere, snack bowls half finished, game cases tossed like frisbees. Eventually, we dragged ourselves upstairs. My room was set up like a little camp. My bed, my brother's bed, and a couple of mattresses wedged on the floor so everyone could fit. We whispered and giggled for a while. That cozy kind of talking, where the room feels safe just because your friends are there. One by one, they fell asleep. And then it was just me. I remember lying there, listening to the uneven rhythm of everyone's breathing. I couldn't sleep yet, so I reached over to my desk and turned on this small lamp. One of those warm bulbs that barely lights anything, and I started reading a comic. Not Batman this time. It was a Spider-Man one, the kind with big dramatic panels and way too many sound effects. When I finished, I shut the book, sat there for a second, and then clicked the lamp off. And right then, right as the room went dark, I saw it. On the wall, there was a shadow, the shape of an adult man, low to the ground, like he was crouching. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd missed a step on the stairs. At first, I tried to talk myself out of it. You know how your brain scrambles for the normal explanation? Like maybe it was a weird angle from the streetlight outside, or the curtains, or a coat hanging somewhere. I even thought, for a split second, maybe there's a stain on the wall and my eyes are just making a person out of it. But then it moved. The shadow stretched an arm toward where Jules was sleeping on the mattress closest to me. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe right. I just froze. I remember being absolutely convinced that if I moved even an inch, it would turn toward me. The arm reached out slowly, so slowly, and it looked like it was brushing along him. Not grabbing, not shaking him, just touching him, gently, like someone smoothing a blanket or checking on someone they love. And then the strangest part happened. The shadow didn't run away, or snap back, or disappear in a flash. It sort of collapsed inward, like it was being pulled into itself, smaller and smaller, until it was gone. I stayed awake for what felt like the rest of my life. Hours, really. Staring at the wall, blinking, trying to convince myself it wouldn't come back. My heart kept pounding, and then eventually, my body couldn't hold that kind of fear anymore. I guess the adrenaline ran out. My eyes finally got heavy, and I just slipped into sleep, still tense, still half expecting something to happen. The next morning, the chaos of the sleepover came back like a wave. Footsteps, yawns, someone laughing too loud. My mom called us downstairs for breakfast. I remember sitting up and immediately staring at the wall. There was nothing. No stain, no mark, no shape that could have tricked me. Just a normal wall. At the breakfast table, I asked my parents if either of them had come into my room during the night, just to check on us. They both said no. When I tried to explain what I'd seen, they gave me that look adults give kids sometimes. Like they're trying not to be mean, but they really think you made it up. We were eating cereal and drinking chocolate milk, and we put on a game. One of those early Lego games, the kind where the camera angle fights you, and the levels are way harder than they have any right to be. We got stuck on this race section, and we kept passing the controller around, each of us swearing we were definitely going to beat it this time. But I kept glancing at Jules. I finally told everyone what happened, and he got really quiet. He admitted, almost like he didn't want to say it out loud, that he'd felt something brush against him during the night. He said it didn't scare him in the moment. He'd just sort of shifted and gone back to sleep. Then my mom called him over and told him he'd have to leave early because his mom was on the way. I asked why, and my mom said, "I'll tell you later." After everyone went home, I asked again, and my mom's face changed, softer, serious. She told me that Jules's grandfather had passed away during the night. I didn't know what to do with that information. I just remember sitting there, feeling this weird mix of things, like fear and sadness and confusion all tangled together. Nothing else ever happened in that room after that. I kept expecting it. For weeks, I would stare at the wall before bed like I was daring it to show itself again. But it never did. And honestly, the older I got, the less certain I became about what I saw. Maybe it was a trick of light. Maybe my imagination ran wild because I was tired, or because the room was unfamiliar with all those mattresses and bodies and shadows. But sometimes, I think about how gentle that arm looked, how it didn't feel like something threatening, just careful, like someone saying goodbye without wanting to wake anyone. And if that's what it was, if it was the last quiet visit of a grandfather to his grandson, then as terrifying as it was for a 9-year-old kid lying awake in the dark, it was also, in its own strange way, kind of beautiful. So, this is a story my uncle told us. One of those that gets quieter in the room the moment it starts. He lived out in this wide stretch of farmland where houses are scattered far apart. Each farm had just one house on it, and the next house over could be a full kilometer away, sometimes more. At night, it's the kind of place where the dark feels big, like it has space to breathe. Out there, everyone still knew everyone. My uncle was especially close with a guy from a neighboring farm. I'll call him Rafik. They were even loosely related somewhere way back in the family tree, like distant cousins. But more than anything, they were just friends. The kind that drop by without calling, sit on a cot, share a drink, and talk about nothing and everything. And yeah, drinking was their thing. But Rafik was on another planet with it. He was younger than my uncle, but he could drink like it didn't even touch him. Most days he was already half gone before the sun set. Eventually his family just stopped fighting it. They were tired. They'd seen it all. Then one day, Rafik didn't come home. At first, nobody panicked. It wasn't unusual for him to crash somewhere, on a friend's porch, in a shed, under a tree, sleep it off, show up later like nothing happened. But this time, one day turned into two, and then more. No one had seen him. No one had heard his voice. That's when the searching started, real searching. They found him in the worst way. His body was in a canal beside the highway. It had been there for days. The condition he was in, my uncle could barely describe it. The best anyone could piece together was that he'd been hit by a vehicle on the road and thrown down into the canal, where no one noticed him right away. Just a brutal, lonely end. The whole area went heavy with it for a long time. Now, this is where the strange part begins. A while before Rafik died, he and my uncle had bought matching shirts together. Same pattern, same color, identical, one for each of them. They weren't cheap either. The kind you save for weddings, big gatherings, special days. A few months after the funeral, in the middle of winter, my uncle had to attend a wedding in another town. He didn't think much about it. He just pulled out his good clothes and ended up wearing that shirt. The wedding ran late. By the time he got back, it was deep night. He got dropped off near the highway and had to walk the rest of the way home through the farmland. No streetlights, no houses nearby, just open fields and the moon, thin and cold above him. But for him, it wasn't unusual. He grew up walking those paths. He knew every bend, every patch of uneven ground. On the way home, he had to cross this small bridge over a canal, right at an intersection where the water ran under the road. He steps onto the bridge, and suddenly, he hears a laugh. Not a distant laugh, not someone far away. A laugh that sounded close, like someone was right there enjoying a private joke. My uncle stopped mid-step. He turned his head slowly, scanning the dark. And then he saw him. Rafik. And then he spoke. He said, soft and clear, "Oh, you're wearing our shirt." My uncle said his whole body went cold, like all the heat left him at once. He didn't shout. He didn't answer. He didn't even think. He ran. He ran like the night itself was chasing him, straight across those fields, stumbling, lungs burning, feet slapping the dirt, not daring to look behind him. He said it felt like forever, but it was probably 3 or 4 kilometers of pure panic. By the time he reached home, he was drenched in sweat, shaking, barely able to breathe. His family rushed out, thinking something had attacked him, an animal, thieves, anything. They kept asking, "What happened? What happened?" My uncle didn't say a word. He grabbed the shirt, that shirt, yanked it off like it was scorching his skin, and walked straight to the fire stove in the yard. And he burned it. Only after he watched it catch and curl and blacken did he finally speak. And when he told them what he'd seen on that bridge, nobody laughed. Nobody argued. The whole house just went still. And here's the part that makes my stomach tighten even now. It wasn't only my uncle. Other members of Rafiq's family later said they'd seen him too, on that same bridge. Same spot, same presence. Like that place held on to something that didn't want to let go. And my uncle, he never crossed that bridge at night again. Okay, so this happened one winter back in 2017, just outside Gothenburg, in a quiet neighborhood where the snow sticks around long enough to make everything feel muffled. I was 19, maybe just turning 20, and I was staying at my parents' place while they were out of town. My girlfriend at the time, let's call her Maya, was with me. We were house sitting, basically, and taking care of our two family dogs, Loki and Freya. Sweet dogs, normally fearless, the kind that bark at plastic bags like they're intruders. Here's the background that matters. My grandparents had passed away not that long before, maybe 4 or 5 months earlier, and my parents had brought a bunch of their things into the house. Old furniture, paintings, little sentimental stuff you don't know where to put, so you tuck it away. Most of it ended up in my parents' bedroom. The door to that room was kind of always in view from the living room. Like you'd be sitting on the couch and there it was, diagonally across, just present. And in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room, my parents had placed this small antique love seat that used to belong to my grandparents. Faded fabric, carved wooden arms, one of those pieces that feels like it's been quietly watching people for decades. And the dogs? They would not go into my parents' bedroom, not even for treats. They'd step up to the doorway, sniff the air like they were testing it, and then back away fast, ears low, tail tight. It wasn't dramatic barking or anything. It was worse than that. It was like decision. Like, no, not in there. And honestly, I got it. That room felt heavy. I don't know how else to describe it. You know when a place feels wrong even though everything looks normal? Like the air is thicker and your body notices before your brain catches up. That. Now, while we were there, both Maya and I got sick. Like, properly sick. I had it the worst. Strep throat and an ear infection at the same time. Feverish, dizzy, barely able to swallow. I felt like my whole skull was packed with wet cement. One night, snow falling outside, we're on the living room couch watching some dumb comedy. Pretty sure it was Hot Fuzz, something we'd seen a million times. The dogs were curled up with us. Maya fell asleep against my shoulder, and I was that kind of sick tired where you keep slipping under. And then, clear as day, from the hallway, right by that antique love seat, a loud, deliberate throat clear, like, ahem. Not a little cough, not a creak, not maybe the pipes. It sounded like a person, like someone trying to get your attention politely but firmly. My whole body went cold, but my first thought was honestly, I'm hallucinating. Fever, infection, my brain's glitching. I tried to talk myself down in real time, until I saw the dogs. Both Loki and Freya shot upright like they'd been yanked by strings. Heads turned toward the hallway, ears forward, staring. Not barking, not growling, just locked on, totally alert, like they were waiting for the next move. So I whispered, Maya, did you hear that? She stirred, blinked at me all groggy and goes, yeah, I heard it. I thought that was you. And I just remember staring at her like, please don't say that. Because if she heard it too, then it wasn't my fever. We sat there for a while, breathing shallow, just listening. Nothing else happened. Eventually we convinced ourselves it was, I don't know, the house settling, wind, anything that wasn't what it felt like. The next day, we were still sick and miserable. I stayed on the couch most of the day, half wrapped in a blanket, playing through old games to distract myself, Skyrim, I think, and Maya was scrolling on her phone, bundled up like a little ghost. I didn't want to, but I did. Freya wasn't there, but something was. Right in the middle of the bed, perfectly centered like it had been placed there carefully, was this shallow wire laundry basket. Metal mesh, lightweight, the kind you could toss with one hand. And it was sitting completely flat, like it had been set down gently and intentionally. I stood there for a second just staring at it, trying to remember if I'd put it there. Maya wouldn't have. My parents were gone, and I definitely hadn't been in that room unless I absolutely had to. I left the room and found Freya a few minutes later, curled up under a blanket in the living room, trembling like she wanted to disappear into the fabric. That night, we tried to act normal. Same routine: couch, blankets, dogs pressed against us, lights low. Around 10-ish, we decided to go to bed in my old room. The dogs followed, and for a moment it felt safe, like we were retreating into a smaller, familiar space. We turned off the lights and had just settled in, like that exact moment right before sleep. And then the house exploded with a crash. A heavy, violent slam, like something big being thrown or dropped from a height. The kind of sound that hits your ribs. I sat straight up and went, "What the hell was that? Someone's in the house." Maya was instantly wide awake, whispering my name like she didn't want to make noise. The dogs were tense, nails scraping softly against the floor. I don't know why I did this, sick, half delirious, but I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife we had and started checking rooms. Slow, shaking, trying to breathe quietly, listening for footsteps. Kitchen, nothing. Bathroom, nothing. Living room, empty. Hallway, still. And then I reached my parents' bedroom. The door was open, and on the floor, upside down, was the wire laundry basket. Not near the bed, not gently tipped over. It looked like it had been launched, like it had hit the floor with enough force to make that awful crash. And the bed? Soft, high. There was no reasonable way for that basket, lightweight, wide, shallow, to end up on the floor like that, upside down, with that kind of sound, without someone grabbing it and throwing it. I called Maya in, and she stood behind me in the doorway, peering around my shoulder. And when she saw it, she didn't even speak at first. She just made this tiny sound, like her breath caught, and grabbed my arm hard. And I swear to you, we didn't do the tough horror movie thing where you investigate further. We didn't cleanse the house or call a neighbor or anything brave like that. We just froze. Like our brains were refusing to process what our eyes were seeing, because once you accept it, you can't unaccept it. I don't even remember how we got through the rest of the night. It's like the memory turns blurry right there. Fear does that. I just remember the dogs pressed against us, both of us wide awake, listening to the house in the dark, waiting for another sound that we didn't want to hear, but couldn't stop expecting. So, I'm 26 now, and I still remember the first time I realized the paranormal wasn't just something people joked about. When I was 9, my family packed up and moved to a duplex in Fargo, North Dakota. We were loud and crowded, 6 kids, so you can imagine how tight that place felt. It was one of those homes where the layout makes you tilt your head like, who designed this? The walls felt thin, the air felt stale, and no matter how many lamps were on, certain corners still looked wrong. My parents had their room. 2 of my brothers shared one. My 3 sisters shared another. And me? I got the extra room, if you could even call it that. It used to be a storage space off the back, and the washer and dryer lived in there too. My little bed was shoved against the wall, half under this low ceiling slope, like I'd been tucked into a part of the house nobody wanted to acknowledge. Most nights, once the house finally quieted down, I'd sneak out to the living room to watch TV. I was obsessed with this dumb animated show my brother Jonah thought was hilarious, something I absolutely wasn't allowed to watch. But once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, you know? It felt like I had this secret little life after bedtime. Getting to the living room meant crossing the whole house in the dark. I'd slide out of my back room, past the kitchen, and step into this long hallway that always made my stomach tense up. There was this old stairway leading up to a door that had been nailed shut, like somebody had made a firm decision that whatever's up there stays up there. The bedrooms lined the hall, the bathroom, the front door, a massive coat closet that creaked if you even looked at it too hard. It felt like the hallway itself was always listening. And then one night, I walked out of the kitchen and it was like the air changed texture. Not just cold, like heavy, thick, like walking into a room where a conversation has stopped because you showed up. I stopped mid-step. My whole body went tight, and before I even turned my head, I had that awful sensation of being watched, like eyes on my skin. Slowly, so slowly, I looked toward my sister's bedroom door, and she was there. A woman standing just outside their room. Bright coppery hair, like it caught light even though the hallway was dark. She wore this long white nightgown that looked old-fashioned, almost like something out of a photo album. And the strangest part, she wasn't solid. Not exactly. She had this faint glow to her, like she was lit from the inside, like the air around her couldn't decide whether to let her exist. She didn't move at first. She didn't speak. She just stared at me. I wish I could tell you what her face looked like, but it's more like I remember the feeling of it. Blank, but intent. Like she was focusing on me. Like she was figuring me out. I couldn't scream. My throat wouldn't work. My legs wouldn't work. I stood there frozen, and in my head I was yelling, "Move, move, move!" But nothing happened. And then, without any sound at all, she looked away. She turned, calm as anything, and walked straight into my sister's room like the door wasn't even there. That was when I snapped out of it. I ran back so fast I nearly slipped on the kitchen floor. I dove into my little bed in the laundry room, yanked the blanket over my head, and stayed curled up like a pill bug until morning. I didn't even get up to pee. I just waited for daylight like it was the only thing that could save me. I pulled her aside, still shaky, and I told her everything. The hallway, the hair, the white gown, the way the woman looked at me. And I swear to you, my mom's face went so pale, it was like all the blood drained out at once. She didn't interrupt. She didn't do the "it was a dream" thing. She just listened like she already knew what was coming. When I finished, she stared at me for a second like she was trying to keep herself together. And then she said, really quietly, like her voice didn't want to carry through the house, "Emmy told me she saw her too." I blinked. Saw who? And my mom swallowed hard before she answered. The red-haired woman. Last night. In your sister's room. Pressed up against the wall. Like she was stuck there. That was it. That was the moment my whole world shifted. Because my parents had always talked about weird stuff. Footsteps when nobody was upstairs. The doorbell ringing with no one outside. Soft voices in the hallway. I'd rolled my eyes. I thought they were just spooking themselves. But after that night, after her, I never laughed about it again. Okay, before I jump in, I just want to say, This is genuinely my first time telling this story out loud like this, and I've been sitting on it for years, like a decade. So if I ramble a little, just bear with me. Grab a snack. I'm serious. This one's long. So, back when I was maybe 15-ish, somewhere between 14 and 16, I was home alone watching our family dog, Nova, this big fluffy husky with attitude for days. And I start hearing these little creaks around the house. At first I'm like, old house, settling, whatever. But then I pause, and I really listen, and I swear to you, I hear footsteps, like actual, deliberate footsteps, which makes absolutely no sense because nobody's home. So I get quiet, like full statue mode, and I look at Nova to see if she's reacting. She is. Not barking, not growling, just uneasy. Ears weird, body stiff. That I don't like this vibe. And instead of doing the smart thing and calling for help right away, I do what a lot of teenagers do. I start gaslighting myself. Like, you're being dramatic. You're imagining it. But here's the thing. My parents' house had always felt off. Like there was always some kind of weird energy in it. And my family had stories. So part of me was like, this isn't just nerves. So I call my best friend Maya. I'm like, Maya, I'm really scared. I think someone's in my house. And she's trying to be practical, but she's also a kid too. So she goes, I'm watching my little brother right now. If I come, I have to bring him. And I'm like, fine, bring him. I don't care. I just need someone here. So Maya shows up with her little brother Eli, who's probably around 9. And I remember clinging to that kid like he was a life raft. Poor thing. And because we were apparently auditioning for a low-budget horror movie, we decide we're going to clear the house. We both grab kitchen knives, like that's going to help us against anything. And we start in the basement and work our way up, room by room, trying to act brave even though our hearts are basically trying to claw out of our rib cages. The whole time, I keep hearing faint movement. Not constant, just enough to make you question yourself, and then panic all over again. By the time we get close to the second floor, I feel sick. That's the only way I can describe it. Like my stomach drops and my skin feels wrong, like I shouldn't be there. Maya goes into my parents' room first, checks it, and she suddenly yells, "We have to check the attic." And I'm like, no, we check every room first, every room. Then we talk about the attic. So we start walking toward the 3 doors lined up next to each other. My bedroom, my older brother's bedroom, and the bathroom. Maya steps out of my parents' room, right into the hallway, and I swear on everything. All 3 doors slam shut at the same time. Not gently, not like a draft, like someone punched them closed. And here's what makes it worse. No windows were open, and that bathroom didn't even have a window. Eli shrieks. I grab him so hard I probably bruised him. Maya and I both jump like cartoon characters. I remember thinking in this split second, okay, so we're not crazy. We open the bathroom, nothing. We open my room, nothing. Then we open my brother's room, and there's no person in there, but it's not nothing either. The air feels wrong, heavy, and the closet is half open, and my brother's closet had one of those little attic access panels built into the ceiling inside it. It won't really budge, but it does move, just a tiny bit, like a centimeter. Enough to make us stare at each other like, did you see that? We even recorded little clips on Maya's phone, messing with it using a hanger, because at that age, that's what you do. You're terrified, but also like, we need proof. Then we check my parents' closet attic panel too, and that one feels like it's sealed shut, like glued. After that, we're kind of shakily like, okay, maybe it's fine, because what else can you do? Maya takes Eli home, and I'm left in the house trying to pretend I'm not completely wrecked. Now, fast forward about a year. My dad was overseas for work. My brother and his girlfriend were over earlier, but it's late now and everyone's asleep. By this point, we had 2 dogs, Nova the husky and this massive German shepherd named Bruno. Like, huge. Absolutely could have ended someone if he had to. I'm in my room on a video call with this guy named Caleb, and I tell him, I feel really uneasy, like someone's watching me. And he laughs a little and goes, maybe because we're on video? But I'm not joking. I keep hearing faint sounds downstairs. Then I look at my dogs. Bruno looks terrified. Not alert, not protective, scared. Nova is tucked behind him like she's using him as a shield. That's when I get this cold realization. If the dogs are scared, it's not in my head. My mom always slept with her door cracked open when my dad was away, so the dogs could roam and guard the house. So even though every part of me wanted them in my room, I try to push them out. They refuse like they've suddenly turned into statues. Legs locked, full body breaks, no movement. I'm literally apologizing out loud like, I'm so sorry, but you need to go protect Mom. Finally, they creep out, reluctant, slow, heads low. And the second they clear my doorway, Caleb and I both hear it. Stomping, like someone sprinting up the stairs. Fast, heavy, like they're trying to be heard. I slam my door and lock it so hard my hand hurts. The stomping stops at the top of the stairs. And then, quieter now. There are footsteps coming down the hallway. Toward my room. Toward my brother's room. And I swear, this is the part that still makes my stomach twist. The footsteps stop right outside my door. Just standing there. I don't know how long it was. It felt like 20 minutes, but it was probably 2. Time does that when you're terrified. Then I hear one step, like it backs away. And I tell Caleb, trying to sound casual even though my voice is shaking, hey, I'm gonna get some sleep. I can't deal with this right now. The next morning, I'm half awake, and I hear my mom on the phone with my dad. And I hear her say something like, it sounded like someone was in the house last night. I even felt someone sit on the bed, and when I looked, no one was there. Hours later, the house is empty again, and I can't let it go. I start checking rooms, trying to see if anything looks disturbed. Like maybe there was an actual person. Maybe something moved. Maybe there's an explanation. I check my parents' room. My stomach is in my throat. I check my brother's room. Then I go into his closet. And everything looks normal until I glance up. And the attic panel is gone. Not closed, not painted over. Gone like it never existed. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to process what I was looking at. Like my brain couldn't accept it. I'm like, Maya, the attic in his closet. It's gone. And she goes silent for a second, and then just blurts, no way. Because she remembers it. Eli remembers it. My mom remembers it. My brother remembers it. But when we bring it up to my dad later, he gets weirdly defensive and insists there was never an attic in that closet. Like, not even, I don't remember. He's adamant, angry. So I'm like, fine, we have proof. Because of those videos we took. So I ask Maya to send them. And this is the part that makes me feel insane all over again. The videos will not load. They're there, but they don't open. Ever. Not once. Like corrupted files. Like blank. And over time, my dad convinces my mom she must be imagining it too. But I know what I saw. Because even before all of this, when we first moved into that house, my parents let me choose my bedroom first. And I remember stepping into my brother's room, seeing that attic access in his closet, and immediately going, nope, I'm taking the other room. I don't want an attic in my closet. I remember the thought so clearly because I felt relieved, like I avoided something. And to this day, that attic is still missing. I don't know what happened. I don't know what it means. And I fully understand how unbelievable it sounds. But I'm telling you, this is exactly how it happened. 10. The name in the quiet. So this was last summer, right? I come home from the grocery store thinking the place is going to be totally empty. I'm juggling bags, kicking the door shut with my foot, already picturing 5 minutes of peace. But then, my brother Eli is home anyway. He's like half visible down the hall, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. No big deal. I'm exhausted though. Like that heavy, sleepy kind of tired where your body feels 2 seconds from powering down. So instead of going upstairs like a normal person, I just toss the bags on the kitchen counter and collapse on the living room couch. Shoes still on. One of those, I'll close my eyes for a second, naps. I'm drifting. Warm sunlight coming through the window, everything quiet, and then I hear it. Right next to my ear, super soft, like someone's leaning in close. Maya. I snap awake immediately, like full jolt. I sit up and scan the room. Nothing. Nobody. The TV's off. No footsteps. Just that still, sleepy afternoon silence. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe that was one of those half-dream things. Brain glitch. So I lay back down, trying to laugh it off, telling myself I'm being dramatic. A minute or two passes. And then again, clearer this time, still quiet, still right there by my ear. Maya. Now I'm annoyed, because it's one thing to hear something once, but twice? Twice feels personal. I open my eyes and stare at the ceiling like it's going to explain itself. The room is still empty. No movement, no shadows, nothing. I'm like, Eli is totally messing with me. He has to be. So I try to ignore it. I close my eyes again. I'm stubborn like that. Like if I pretend hard enough, reality will cooperate. And then the third time it happens, it's even softer, slower, kind of drawn out, like whoever's saying it is right up against my ear and trying not to be heard. Maya. That one hits different. I sit straight up so fast I almost make myself dizzy, heart doing that dumb little jumpy thump, and I shout down the hallway, "Yo, what?" No answer. I go straight to the bathroom, doors closed, and I can hear the shower running full blast. I knock hard, like, bam, bam, bam. Eli, quit messing with me. And he yells back over the water, totally confused. What are you talking about? I'm in the shower. I just stand there for a second with my hand still on the door. Did you whisper my name? I ask, like 3 times? There's this tiny pause where it's just the shower hissing. Then he goes, "No, dude, I haven't said anything. I've been in here the whole time." And I swear, the hallway got colder. Not like physically freezing, but that feeling where your skin goes a little tight, like your body knows something before your brain catches up. I back away from the bathroom door slowly, and I look down the hall toward the living room like the couch is going to turn around and look at me back. The whole house felt too quiet after that, like it was holding its breath. I didn't go back to the couch. I didn't even pretend I was going to finish my nap. I just went to the kitchen, started unpacking groceries like my life depended on it, making noise, opening cabinets, clattering spoons, anything to break that silence. And yeah, it still gives me a weird little chill when I think about it. I've taken naps on that couch since then, but not like that. Not the shoes on, lights on, fully relaxed kind. Because ever since that day, a small part of me is like, what if it says my name again? So this was last summer, right? I come home from the grocery store thinking the place is going to be totally empty. I'm juggling bags, kicking the door shut with my foot, already picturing 5 minutes of peace. But then, my brother Eli is home anyway. He's like half visible down the hall, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. No big deal. I'm exhausted though. Like that heavy, sleepy kind of tired where your body feels 2 seconds from powering down. So instead of going upstairs like a normal person, I just toss the bags on the kitchen counter and collapse on the living room couch. Shoes still on. One of those, I'll close my eyes for a second naps. I'm drifting. Warm sunlight coming through the window. Everything quiet. And then I hear it. Right next to my ear, super soft, like someone's leaning in close. Maya. I snap awake immediately, like full jolt. I sit up and scan the room. Nothing. Nobody. The TV's off. No footsteps. Just that still, sleepy afternoon silence. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe that was one of those half-dream things. Brain glitch. So I lay back down, trying to laugh it off, telling myself I'm being dramatic. A minute or two passes. And then again, clearer this time, still quiet, still right there by my ear. Maya. Now I'm annoyed. Because it's one thing to hear something once, but twice? Twice feels personal. I open my eyes and stare at the ceiling like it's going to explain itself. The room is still empty. No movement, no shadows, nothing. I'm like, Eli is totally messing with me. He has to be. So I try to ignore it. I close my eyes again. I'm stubborn like that. Like if I pretend hard enough, reality will cooperate. And then the third time it happens, it's even softer. Slower, kind of drawn out. Like whoever's saying it is right up against my ear and trying not to be heard. Maya. That one hits different. I sit straight up so fast I almost make myself dizzy, heart doing that dumb little jumpy thump. And I shout down the hallway, "Yo, what?" No answer. So now I'm mad and freaked out, which is the worst combo. I get up and walk down the hall, trying to stomp a little louder than necessary, like I'm proving I'm not scared. I go straight to the bathroom, doors closed, and I can hear the shower running full blast. I knock hard, like bam, bam, bam. "Eli, quit messing with me." And he yells back over the water, totally confused. "What are you talking about? I'm in the shower." I just stand there for a second with my hand still on the door. "Did you whisper my name?" I ask. Like 3 times? There's this tiny pause where it's just the shower hissing. Then he goes, "No, dude, I haven't said anything. I've been in here the whole time." And I swear, the hallway got colder. Not like physically freezing, but that feeling where your skin goes a little tight, like your body knows something before your brain catches up. I back away from the bathroom door slowly, and I look down the hall toward the living room like the couch is going to turn around and look at me back. The whole house felt too quiet after that, like it was holding its breath. I didn't go back to the couch. I didn't even pretend I was going to finish my nap. I just went to the kitchen, started unpacking groceries like my life depended on it, making noise, opening cabinets, clattering spoons, anything to break that silence. I've taken naps on that couch since then, but not like that. Not the shoes on, lights on, fully relaxed kind. Because ever since that day, a small part of me is like, what if it says my name again? So this happened to me twice, and I still get that weird tight feeling in my chest when I talk about it. The first time was a rainy night back when I lived in this tiny studio apartment. One of those places where the kitchen is basically 2 steps away from your bed. The power went out, and honestly, it kind of felt cozy at first. No phones, no TV, just a bunch of us sitting around talking like people used to, laughing, filling the darkness with our voices. There were 3 of us awake, me, my friend Darius, and my other friend Milo, and we were mid-conversation when Darius just changed. Like someone flipped a switch behind his eyes. His face went blank for half a second, then it tightened up like he'd suddenly remembered something terrifying, and he didn't say a word. He just stood up really slowly and walked toward the kitchen. Now the layout matters here. The kitchen was behind this sliding glass door. You had to slide it open to the left before you could see the little hallway and the sink area. Darius slid that door open like he was moving through water, and then he just stopped. He stared toward the cupboards by the sink for, no exaggeration, almost a full minute. Dead still, not blinking like normal, just staring. Milo and I exchanged that look, you know the one. Curious, annoyed, anxious, all mixed together, and we both leaned forward. Quiet, like we were scared to make the air move. And then we peeked. I don't even remember who leaned in first, but we both saw what Darius was looking at. There was a figure, a man-shaped shadow, like darker than the dark around it. He had this old-timey vibe, high hat, the outline of a cane or walking stick, and he was leaning against the counter like he belonged there, like he'd been waiting. And the part that makes my skin crawl just thinking about it, he looked like he was smiling. Not a big, friendly smile, more like a private little grin, like he knew something we didn't, like we were late. And he didn't move, not even a twitch. No sound, no footsteps, no breathing, nothing. Just standing there in the kitchen, grinning in the dark. We didn't scream. Nobody said a word. It was like our mouths collectively forgot how to work. Eventually, we don't even talk about how it happened, we all ended up back in the main room, sitting down again. Like we could just ignore it back into not being real. And we forced conversation to continue, but it got stiff, like we were all pretending we hadn't just seen the same impossible thing. And then the talking ran out. That natural lull hit. I remember staring at the floor for a second, and then I finally said, really quietly, "You both saw it too, right?" No one answered. No denial, no, "What are you talking about?" Just silence. And somehow that silence was the loudest answer. That was in late 2021, I'm pretty sure. Could have been early 2022, but it was around then. Then, I didn't see him again for a long time. I tried to file it away as some kind of shared trick of the darkness. Stress, sleep deprivation, anything. But about 6 weeks ago, it happened again. This time I wasn't alone, but it wasn't that same exact setup. There were like 7 of us hanging out at a friend's place. Music earlier, snacks, people crashing on couches. Eventually, everyone started passing out one by one, and it got to that late, quiet hour when the whole house feels like it's holding its breath. It was just me and my friend Renee still awake, barely talking, kind of half laughing about nothing. And then I saw him. Not fully at first, just that shape in the corner of my vision, that wrongness, like the darkness had a spine. But this time, something else happened, and I can't explain it without sounding insane. The more afraid I got, the more present he became. Not like he literally got taller or bulkier in a normal way, more like my fear gave him definition. Like he fed off being noticed. Like every heartbeat in my chest drew his outline sharper. I could feel my face change. I didn't even have to speak. Renee looked at me and her whole expression shifted. She whispered, "You see something." And I swear to you, I hadn't said a word yet. I hadn't even pointed. She just knew, because I must have looked like I'd seen a car coming straight at me. I nodded, barely able to breathe, and she said, "I believe you." That almost broke me. because it meant it wasn't just in my head, at least not entirely. Not if someone could read it off me that clearly. The next afternoon, when everybody was finally awake, we were all eating and joking and trying to shake off the weirdness of staying up too late. And then someone, my friend Jace, casually says something like, "By the way, Kendrick saw something last night." And Kendrick's not the kind of guy who scares easily. Like, he's the type who's been through real things. Solid, grounded, nobody messes with him. Jace said Kendrick had woken up in the middle of the night, sat straight up, and just froze. Like he was seeing something in the room that hit his nervous system like a stun gun. He didn't want to talk about it much, but the vibe was familiar. And I remember sitting there, fork halfway to my mouth, feeling cold spread across my shoulders, because suddenly, the pattern wasn't just mine. Here's the part that messes with me the most. Both times, it didn't end because someone turned on a light or because I ran away. It ended because I did something internal. I told it with my whole chest, that I wasn't afraid. Not fake bravado, not "yeah, whatever bro" energy. I mean the kind of steady, real refusal. The kind where you feel your fear still there, but you're not giving it the wheel. And every time I do that, when I genuinely mean it, the figure starts to fade. Slowly, like mist evaporating. But even as he disappears, that grin stays. Like he's amused. Like he thinks it's funny. Sometimes I even swear it looks like he's holding back a little laugh, like a silent giggle in the curve of his mouth. And then he's gone. So yeah, that's my story. I don't know what he is. I don't know why he shows up. I don't know if it's something external or something psychological that more than one person can tap into. But I do know what it feels like. It feels like being watched by something that wants you to notice it. Something that gets stronger the more you panic. Like fear is the invitation. And it feels like the only way to shut the door is to stop feeding it. I just needed to say it out loud, because keeping it inside makes it feel bigger. And I'm tired of pretending it didn't happen when I remember every detail like it was stamped into me. Okay, so I've lived in this house for about 12 years, and for most of that time, I would have rolled my eyes at anything paranormal. Like, genuinely, if someone told me their house was haunted, I'd be polite, but in my head I'd be thinking, sure it is. I live here with my mom, and my partner Nina moved in a little over a year ago, and almost right away, she started telling me she was hearing things. Scratching inside the walls, knocks on doors, that kind of stuff. Sometimes she'd wake me up like, "Did you hear that?" And I'd be half asleep going, "It's probably pipes, or the house settling, or the cat, or literally anything else." And now I feel awful about it, because I didn't really believe her. I dismissed it. I didn't mean to be cruel. I just didn't think it was real. Then about 6 weeks ago, I had this moment that I cannot explain away. It was early, like one of those quiet, dead hours of the morning. I was alone in the kitchen, just standing there, and the kitchen opens into the hallway. And in the hall, just for a split second, I saw this figure. And I'm almost embarrassed describing it because it sounds like something from a cheap horror film. But it looked like a small child, like a little girl, wearing a pale, floaty dress. It was there, and then it wasn't. Not like it ran off, not like it faded dramatically, nothing cinematic. It was just there, and then gone, like my brain had blinked and the world changed. At the time I was freaked out, but I'd had a couple drinks, wasn't drunk, just a little buzzed, so I tried to convince myself it was that. Tired eyes, weird lighting, my imagination filling in shapes. But I told Nina anyway. And here's the part that made my stomach drop. She went quiet and said she'd seen something too, standing in the corner of our bedroom near the door. And she described it without me prompting her, without me telling her what I saw, and she described basically the same thing. A small girl, a dress, that corner of your eye feeling. After that, it wasn't just a one-time thing. Both of us started seeing her, mostly in the upstairs hallway, usually in our peripheral vision. Never a full, clear look. Always like your eyes catch on something and your brain screams, "Someone is there," and when you look straight at it, there's nothing. And Nina, who hasn't had panic attacks in years, is now getting them again. The worst ones are in the early hours. Sometimes she wakes up already in a full panic, like something yanked her out of sleep. And the noises have increased too. Not just vague house sounds, more frequent, more deliberate. Scratches, thumps, a bang that makes you stop mid-sentence and just listen. But the most unsettling thing that happened, it was a few evenings ago. We were in our bedroom, just talking, and my mom was in her room next door. It wasn't late, it was early evening, normal time, normal mood. And Nina and I both heard, clear as day, my mom screaming my name like she was hurt, like real pain, real panic. She called out for me, like she needed help immediately. I jumped up and ran into her room so fast, I don't even remember crossing the hallway. And she's just sitting there, calm, confused. She looks at me like, "What's wrong with you?" I asked if she'd yelled. She said no. I asked if she'd heard anything. She said no. And I believed her instantly. My mom isn't the type to play games like that, and she looked genuinely baffled. Then there's this other weird layer. Food has started going missing. Not like, oh, we ate it and forgot. I mean things I know we had. Things I specifically remember seeing are just not there later. Stuff that couldn't realistically have all been used up since the last time I noticed it. It's small, but it's constant enough that it's become a pattern. So I actually dug out a security camera, and I'm planning to set it up in the kitchen just to rule out anything normal. Sleepwalking, forgetfulness, whatever. And look, I know how this sounds. I do. If I heard this story from someone else a year ago, I would have been the skeptic in the room. But I'm not anymore. Because it's not just events. It's the feeling. The air in the house sometimes feels occupied. Like you're not alone even when you're alone. Like something is waiting just out of sight. Now, I don't know if any of this matters, but I've used a Ouija board once, like over a decade ago, and nothing weird happened afterward, so I never thought about it again. Nina also told me that when she was younger, she swore there was something in her dad's house. Bad enough that her family actually brought someone in to bless the place. Lately, on her mom's advice, we bought some incense and a couple things like selenite, stuff meant to cleanse or calm the space. And part of me feels ridiculous doing it. But another part of me is like, why wouldn't we try everything? So yeah, that's where we are. Two people who were living a normal life, and now we're whispering about hallways and listening for footsteps, and wondering why a house we've known for years suddenly feels unfamiliar. And honestly, I don't even know what I'm asking for anymore. I guess I just want to know what you do when you feel like something has noticed you back. So, I honestly don't even know what bucket to drop this into. If I had to slap a label on it, maybe sleep paralysis, maybe something weird in between a dream and awake, but it felt so specific that my brain keeps trying to give it a spooky name anyway. For context, hi, I'm Rowan, and I run hot all the time. Like, kicked the blanket off in my sleep without remembering it, hot. Lately I've also been wearing these silicone-tipped earbuds at night to block noise, because my schedule is kind of the opposite of my roommate's schedule, and the house can get loud when I'm trying to sleep. This morning, I woke up way earlier than I was supposed to, like more than an hour before my alarm. I remember blinking at the clock, doing that annoyed little sigh, and rolling onto my stomach like, okay, we're going right back to sleep. Easy. Nope, because as soon as I settled in, I got this weird sensation around my middle, like the hem of my shirt was being tugged upward just a tiny bit. Not yanked, not pulled hard, just lifted. It felt light, like something had pinched the fabric and let it hover for a second. And I remember lying there thinking, is my shirt twisted? Am I imagining that? And then I didn't have time to wonder anymore, because suddenly it felt like a whole person just laid right on top of me. Not like a gentle weight either, like a heavy, full-body pressure that pressed my shoulders, my back, my hips, down into the mattress. But there was no warmth, no shifting, no breath, nothing human, just the fact of being pinned. What made it worse is that I've felt something like this before. When I was a kid, it happened every once in a while. Waking up and feeling like someone was sitting on my chest or leaning on me, like I was being smothered. I used to panic so hard I'd practically vibrate. Eventually, my parents convinced me it was just a nightmare I sometimes had, and I guess I trained myself to accept it as one of those things. But this time had a new layer of, what the hell? Because the second that weight settled on me, one of my earbuds, the one that had apparently died overnight, started blasting this awful electronic screech into my ear. And I don't mean like a little crackle. I mean that old school mechanical shrill sound, like when you accidentally call a fax machine, or like a broken piece of dial-up trying to connect. It kept shifting pitches, almost in timed steps, like it was cycling through tones, loud enough that it felt like it was inside my skull. So I'm stuck there, face down, heavy pressure flattening me, and this dead earbud is somehow screaming like it's possessed by a 1999 internet connection. And then, this is the part that really gets under my skin. I could feel something paying attention to me. You know when you can sense someone staring at you? Like your skin knows before your eyes do? That's what it felt like. Like something was close and getting closer, and it was focused on me with this quiet, patient intensity. The hair on the back of my neck prickled straight up, and I had this immediate, primal thought. Get it off. Now. I tried to move. Nothing. My body felt glued to the bed. I could barely manage to lift one shoulder, just a fraction, like a twitch. The pressure didn't budge. I tried again, forcing it, like I was pushing through wet cement. And the moment I got my shoulder up that second time, the weight started to lift. Not instantly, but like someone slowly stood up off me. And at the exact same time, the screeching in my ear cut out. Just gone. I sat there for a minute, breathing, staring at absolutely nothing, trying to decide whether I was terrified or just furious. And then I did what I always end up doing when something doesn't make sense. I grabbed my phone and wrote it down, like somehow putting words on it would make it behave. What's strange is, usually, if I've had episodes like this in the past, I feel like I wake up halfway through them, like I surface into awareness mid-scare. But this time, I was there for the whole thing, from the shirt feels weird moment to the pressure to the sound. And I also remember other times, years ago, when I'd feel a blanket lift just slightly, or my shirt tug, and I'd shift my body, move under a different part of the covers, and it would just stop. Like that tiny movement was enough to break whatever was happening. So I don't know. Maybe it's just my brain misfiring in that half-awake state. Maybe it's the earbuds doing something weird when the battery dies. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's sleep paralysis wearing a very convincing costume. But I'll tell you this, in the moment, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something sat down on me, screamed into my ear, and waited to see if I'd notice. This was about 6 years ago now, and I still don't know what to make of it. Back then, I was dating this woman named Mara. She could be honestly so affectionate, like the kind of person who'd hold your face in both hands and tell you you were safe with her. But then, she'd flip. No warning, just this sudden, violent temper that felt like a door slamming in your face. One time she grabbed a knife during an argument, and when I tried to get it away from her, I ended up with a cut on my palm. Nothing life-threatening, but it told me everything I needed to know about how unpredictable things could get. Her place matched that energy too. The whole apartment felt heavy. Dark art everywhere. Those paintings where you can't tell if the figures are angels or monsters. And she had this creepy-looking occult book just sitting out like it was a cute decoration. Even the lighting was dim all the time. It was like her home was permanently set to midnight. Anyway, one night I stayed over. We were in bed, kind of melting into the mattress, watching movies, laughing a little, calm for once. At some point, I got up to go downstairs and grab a soda from the fridge. The kitchen was mostly dark, just that single warm light over the stove. You know that quiet kind of dark where you can hear the fridge hum and your own footsteps sound too loud? That kind. I opened the fridge, bent down, grabbed the drink, and as I stood back up and swung the door closed, I froze. Because something was right there. Not on the wall. Not a shadow cast by the stove light. Right in front of me. It was like a person-shaped darkness, taller than me, solid in the sense that it blocked the space, like it had weight. No face, no features, just a silhouette made out of absence. And it wasn't moving like a trick of light. It was just there, as if it had been waiting for me to look up. My whole body reacted before my brain did. I jumped back, heart punching my ribs, and the second I did, the thing vanished. Not like it walked away, more like it blinked out, like someone switched off a picture. And I just stood there with my soda, staring at nothing, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. On the way back upstairs, I kept replaying it. It was my shadow. It was the fridge light. It was the stove light. But none of those fit. The angle was wrong. The placement was wrong. And most of all, shadows don't stand in front of you like a person. I got back into bed and tried to act normal, but I know I looked shaken. I didn't want to bring it up, didn't want to start anything, didn't want to sound crazy. So I just slid under the blanket and stared at the TV like it was the most interesting thing in the world. But Mara noticed immediately. She turned the volume down a little and went, "What's wrong?" And I said something stupid like, "Nothing, just startled myself downstairs." She didn't laugh. She didn't ask what I meant. She just looked at me, really steady, and said, "You saw him, didn't you?" I remember blinking at her and going, "Saw who?" And she said it like she was naming a neighbor, like it was casual, like it was nothing. The shadow man. The air in the room changed. I swear it did. I asked what she meant, and she just shrugged and told me she'd been seeing him since she was a kid, that he showed up sometimes, that it wasn't dangerous, that I shouldn't worry about it. Like she was telling me there were ants in the kitchen, and every single time something happened, Mara was never surprised, never scared. She'd just look around like, there it is again, and go back to whatever we were doing. But that night in the kitchen, that was the only time I saw something directly. And it wasn't subtle. It was unmistakable. Even now, years later, I still catch myself thinking about the exact shape of it, and the way my body knew it wasn't normal before my mind could even form the thought. And I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I still wonder, did I see something real? Or was I just losing it? Right there in her dark, quiet kitchen. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. It's me again, someone who genuinely loves what I do and is always excited to be here, sharing my paranormal experiences from all around the world. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. How's everyone doing? Are you ready to dive into today's stories together? And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Okay, so let me take you back to when I was a kid. One of my closest friends growing up, let's call her Brianna, lived in this part of town that everyone whispered about. The kind of place where the older neighbors would lower their voices and say things like, "That land has a history." People claimed it used to be sacred ground, and whether that was true or just local legend, the reputation stuck. Now, Brianna loved talking about how her house was haunted. She'd casually mention hearing footsteps when no one was upstairs, or doors clicking, or that weird feeling like someone was standing just behind you. Stuff like that. But honestly, from my perspective, her house was amazing. It sat in one of the prettiest, most established neighborhoods, big old trees, wide streets, the kind of homes that felt fancy without trying too hard. And her mom, let's call her Mrs. Delaney, was basically the gold standard of cozy. She decorated for every holiday like it was her personal mission, and she baked like a professional. I'm talking warm cinnamon smells, pies cooling on the counter, little seasonal decorations everywhere. And she threw those fun, wholesome parties where you'd eat too much and laugh until your cheeks hurt. So yeah, I loved going over there. Brianna always had people over. Study sessions, birthdays, random sleepovers. I probably spent as much time in that house as I did in my own for a while. But the night I'm about to tell you about, it changed my whole vibe. It was one of those packed sleepovers. No idea what we were celebrating, but I remember her dad was out of town, and that mattered later. We'd done the usual, movies, snacks, giggling about dumb stuff, whispering long after we promised we'd go to sleep. Her bedroom was wall-to-wall air mattresses. Seriously, there wasn't a visible inch of carpet. I ended up on one right by the door. And the door was open, because in that house, it basically always was at night. At the top of the stairs, just out in the hallway, they kept this big industrial fan running, like a loud, constant hum. Brianna's family said it helped cover up the house noises, because apparently the house would creak and pop and make sounds at night that freaked them out. Personally, I hated the thing. It wasn't soothing, it was just loud, like sleeping next to a small airplane engine. So while everyone else is out cold, I'm lying there staring into listening to that endless droning, trying to fall asleep without losing my mind. And this was before everyone had a phone glued to their hand, so I couldn't even check the time. I couldn't see her clock from where I was either. I just had this sense that it was late, or maybe early. Time gets weird when you're stuck awake. At some point, I heard Mrs. Delaney come out of her bedroom, and I know it was her because her room and Brianna's room faced each other across that little hallway. The fan was in between, so you could still hear footsteps moving around it. And again, Brianna's dad wasn't home. Everyone else was asleep in the room with me, and the sound was so clear it snapped my attention immediately. I heard her walk past the fan, and then start down the stairs. And those stairs had 2 steps that always squeaked. Not a little creak, like a sharp, unmistakable squeal. Didn't matter where you stepped, those 2 steps betrayed you every time. I heard them, exactly like always. So in my head, I'm like, okay, she's up. Maybe she's getting water. Maybe she's starting breakfast. And the second my brain went there, I got stuck on it. Because when I tell you this woman made the best pancakes, listen. She did chocolate chip pancakes that were crispy on the edges and soft in the middle. And she'd do this perfect little dusting of powdered sugar, like she was seasoning food with love. Sometimes bacon on the side, sometimes fruit. Always warm, always comforting. So now I'm wide awake, not scared, just hungry and excited. Like, yes, breakfast is coming. This is the prize for surviving the loud fan all night. Time passes. More time than feels normal. And I start thinking, shouldn't she have come back up by now? Usually she'd come upstairs, gently wake everyone, all cheerful and bright like she hadn't been awake half the night. So I shift around on my air mattress until I can see the top of the stairs clearly, just watching and waiting. And then the light changes. That soft, early morning glow starts creeping in, through the blinds in Brianna's room and the window downstairs, turning everything kind of warm and golden. You know that peaceful look a house gets when the day is just beginning? I'm staring at the stairs, still waiting. And then my stomach drops, because I see Mrs. Delaney step out of her bedroom again. Again. I watched her come out, like it was the first time. I watched her turn, and I watched her walk down the stairs. And my whole body went cold because I knew she had already gone down. She hadn't come back up, not once, not even a little. And I don't mean, I think. I mean I'd been half awake, hyper-aware, tracking sounds because I couldn't sleep. I heard her footsteps. I heard those 2 squeaky steps. I heard her go down. And I'd been waiting for her to come back up ever since. But she never did. So how was she doing it again? I'm sitting there frozen, like my brain is trying to explain it in real time. Like, maybe I imagined it. Maybe I drifted off. Maybe anything. And right then, right as she's going down those steps, I finally smell it. The pancakes. The sweet, warm, buttery smell of breakfast. Chocolate and bacon and that cozy kitchen scent that fills the whole house. And what messed with me the most was I hadn't smelled any of that earlier when I thought I heard her downstairs. It was only now, when I was watching her walk down for the second time, that the smell actually hit. I stayed completely still. Like if I moved, it would confirm something I didn't want to know. A little while later, Mrs. Delaney came back up the stairs, cheerful, normal, calling softly to wake us up for breakfast like nothing strange had happened at all. And that was it. No jump scare. No dramatic ending. Just breakfast. Just a normal morning. But I'll tell you this. After that night, I started noticing things in that house more and more. Little moments that felt off. Sounds. Timing. That same cold rush I'd felt watching her walk down those stairs twice. And I still don't have a clean explanation for it. All I know is, I was there. I was awake. I heard what I heard, and I saw what I saw. And if you ever want to hear the other stuff that happened after that, yeah, I've got more. I used to be the biggest skeptic. Like, I'll happily watch ghost shows at midnight. I'll jump at every horror movie scare. But believe in any of it? No, not me. I always had some practical explanation ready. A drafty old house, a settling floorboard, people reading too much into shadows. And then my husband got sick. It was back in 2021, right in the thick of the COVID surge. We'd been married almost 3 decades. He'd lived with asthma for years, but that night it wasn't just a bad attack. It was terrifying. He couldn't catch his breath, and before the paramedics even got him out the door, he went into cardiac arrest. I'll never forget the number because the medics said it out loud, like he was anchoring himself. They did CPR for nearly 20 minutes. They got his heart back in the ER, and then nothing. 2 months of a coma. 2 months of me sitting beside machines, holding his hand, hearing doctors gently suggest things no wife wants to hear. Life support, quality of life, if he wakes up. But he did wake up. Not the same, not fully. He survived, but the oxygen loss left its mark. He's in a wheelchair now, mostly bedbound, and his short-term memory, It comes and goes like water through your fingers. Still, he can talk. He can laugh. He knows me. He reacts to the people around him. He's here. When he first came home, I moved into my daughter Marissa's place for a few months because I needed help caring for him. She'd bought this house a few years earlier, and she used to say, completely serious, that it was haunted. She even smudged the place with sage more than once. I teased her for it constantly. I'd tell her, "Mari, your house isn't haunted. It's old. That's all." Then my husband started seeing people who weren't there. The first time, it was dinner. Just a normal night, plates clinking, kids talking, the TV murmuring from another room. I'd pulled his wheelchair up next to the table so he could eat with us. Out of nowhere, he got irritated, like genuinely annoyed. He says, "Can you tell that woman to sit down? She's making me crazy." I blinked. "What woman?" He pointed toward the kitchen. "That old lady. She keeps walking back and forth like she owns the place." There was nobody in the kitchen. No footsteps. No shadow. Nothing. Marissa and the kids were right there. No one else was even in the house. My first instinct wasn't fear. It was logic. Medication. Brain injury. A side effect. Something with his new prescriptions. I did what I usually do when he gets confused. I went along gently. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'll ask her." And I remember thinking, this is just the injury. It has to be. But it didn't stop. About 2 weeks later, he screamed for me from the bedroom, one of those screams that yanks your heart right out of your chest. I ran in, expecting he'd fallen or pulled at a tube or anything physical. He was sitting upright, shaking. He said, "Tell them to stop staring at me." "Who?" I asked. He swallowed and whispered, "The old woman, a man, and a boy with a crutch." My skin went cold, because again, the room was empty. And he wasn't describing some vague shapes. He was describing people, like they were standing there beside his bed, just watching him. "They don't talk?" I asked, even though I felt ridiculous saying it out loud. He shook his head. "They just stare, like I'm not supposed to be here." And here's where it gets worse, because the next one didn't feel like the house. During that same period, I was remodeling our own home to make it wheelchair accessible. Wider doorways, a bedroom on the first floor, rails in the bathroom, the whole thing. At the same time, my youngest brother Mateo was in hospice. He was fading fast. Every day felt like borrowed time. One afternoon, Marissa came with me to the house to help paint the new bedroom. I left my husband in the kitchen with the TV on, thinking he'd be fine for a bit. Then he started yelling. Not irritated yelling, panic. I ran in and he was crying, like full-on tears, terrified. He kept saying, "They want me to go with them. They want me to go." I grabbed his hands. "Who wants you to go? Who?" He looked right past me, like he was watching someone in the room, and he said, "Your brother Leo, and your dad." My stomach dropped so hard I felt sick, because my father died when I was little, and my brother Leo, my older brother, had passed years ago. I didn't even think. I just started grilling him, like I could corner reality into behaving. "What do they look like? Where are they standing? What are they saying?" And he described my dad. Not vaguely, not like a guess. He described him in a way that made my throat tighten, little details that matched what I remembered. But my husband had never met my father, not once. And I realized, with this awful, dawning clarity, I don't even keep many photos out. He wouldn't have had that image stored anywhere. He said they were laughing at him, like they were teasing him, and it scared him. And suddenly my skepticism didn't feel smart anymore. It felt flimsy. like paper in the rain. I got angry, not at my husband, never at him, at whatever it was. I actually raised my voice into the empty kitchen like a crazy person. "Stop it," I said. "Do not scare him. If you're here, fine, visit. But you are not taking my husband." I remember begging too, my voice breaking, saying out loud that I thought maybe they were meant for Mateo, not for my husband, because Mateo was only a few blocks away, and he was the one who was truly near the edge. And then, this is the part that still gets me. My husband suddenly relaxed, like a storm passed. He blinked, wiped his face, and said, "They left." And he never saw my father or my brother again. 2 days later, Mateo passed away. I don't even know what to do with that. I still don't. There was another time too, months later, when we were in the ER overnight because he'd yanked out his feeding tube. We were only supposed to be there for a quick replacement, but you know how ERs go. One test becomes 5. They needed a urine sample, and my husband can't go on command. He wears briefs. A tech came in with a catheter, and I could tell immediately she was unsure, but before I could properly intervene, the bag started filling with blood. I called for the doctor. More tests, more waiting. My husband somehow stayed in a decent mood, cracking little jokes, smiling at me like he was trying to lighten my fear. And then he turned his head to the far side of the room and said, clear as day, "Hi, Mom." I froze. "Who are you talking to?" "My mom," he said, casual as anything. His mother, Helena, had been gone for 20 years. And I felt that same flare of panic, the same thought clawing up from the back of my mind. Is she here for him? Is this how it happens? Then he frowned slightly and said, "She says you never really liked her." But I didn't laugh. I whispered into the air, speaking to a person I couldn't see. "Helena, I respected you. I did. Please don't take him. Please." My husband blinked slowly and said, "She's gone." And then he drifted off to sleep. He was released later that night. No great spiritual showdown, no dramatic ending, just us, going home again, carrying the weirdness with us like extra luggage. And now, here I am, this person who used to roll her eyes at the word haunted, sitting with questions I never thought I'd seriously ask. Why did the family in my daughter's house only stare? Why didn't they speak to him? But my dead relatives and his mother actually communicated? Are there different kinds of whatever this is? And the scariest question, the one I hate admitting, is he in danger? I was raised Catholic. I'm not the kind of person who goes to church every Sunday, but those old ideas stick like burrs. Exorcisms, spirits that aren't friendly, the fear that something could attach itself to someone vulnerable. And my husband is vulnerable. He already escaped death once. Sometimes I try to tell myself it's the brain injury, hallucinations, trauma, chemistry. That explanation still sits on the table, and part of me clings to it because it feels safer. But then I remember the details, the timing, the way he looked through me at things I couldn't see. And recently, our cat, Pippa, died. 2 weeks ago. I was heartbroken, more than I expected to be. She'd been with us forever, this little warm presence always curled nearby. And my husband, half asleep one afternoon, smiled toward the foot of the bed and said, "Oh, there you are." I asked, "Who?" He said, like it was the most natural thing in the world, "Pippa." And I just stood there, holding my breath, feeling that strange blend of comfort and terror. Because on one hand, what a beautiful thought that our pets might still be near us somehow. And on the other, if any of this is real, If he truly sees who he says he sees, then I'm living in a world I spent my whole life insisting didn't exist. And I don't know if that means I should be afraid or grateful. Hey. Okay. Before I say any of this, just hear me out for a second. I know how this is going to sound. I know. Even people who are into weird stuff are going to read this and go, yeah, sure. But I'm not trying to be funny, and I'm not trying to impress anybody. I don't even post in places like this. I'm only talking because I'm worn down, and I genuinely don't know what else to do. So, I live up on a mountain in Southern California. Not a cabin in the woods fantasy situation, more like rough land, trailers, pine trees, long roads, dark skies. I've been up here for a few years now, and for most of that time I've been dealing with things that don't fit into any normal category. It started small. The kind of thing you can talk yourself out of. That feeling like you're being watched when you're alone. The hair-raising silence right before dusk. And then, this part sounds like those old mountain stories, hearing your name being called when nobody's there. But that's honestly the gentle version. That's the tip of it. The truth is, my property feels like a hot spot, like it's marked on some invisible map for something. I can't even tell you what. Spirits? Something non-human? Some dimensional overlap? I don't know. And I'm not even saying it's just one thing. Sometimes it feels like multiple types of weird all stacked on top of each other. And I'm at the point where I don't want theories anymore. I want someone, an actual team, to come out here and test the area. Measure things. Record things. Tell me I'm wrong, or tell me what it is. I just need something solid. Let me explain what's been happening. First, the whispers. They happen in both trailers, the one I live in and the other one out back. Not just at night, not just when I'm half asleep. I've heard them in the morning, broad daylight, like 7 a.m. when I'm making coffee. And I'm not talking about the wind or the pipes. I mean whispers. The kind that make you freeze because your brain goes, that was close to me. If I tried to list everything I've heard, we'd be here all day. Then there's this frequency thing. High-pitched tones, shifts in pitch, like something is tuning itself. I started messing with a little radio scanner a while back because I kept noticing strange interference up here. At first it was just curiosity, like, maybe it's the mountain, maybe it's the towers. But then it started to feel like, this is going to sound insane. It started to feel like something was trying to respond. And the part that made me stop, the part that made me throw the whole thing out, was when I swear to you, I could hear my own thought pattern in the static sometimes. Like the noise would line up with what I was thinking in a way that made my stomach drop. Like something was scanning me, reading me. I got so freaked out I dumped the radio in the trash and never touched another one on this property again. That was maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. I'm still not over it. And then there's what I've seen. UFOs, yeah, I'm saying it. I see them constantly, like every week or two. And I'm not talking about a light in the sky that might be a plane. These move wrong. They'll sit there like a star, then slide sideways, then blink out like someone flipped a switch. My neighbors, Seth and Maribel, have seen them too. It's not just me being dramatic. They've stood out there with me and watched it happen, and we just look at each other like, what are we supposed to do with this? But the thing that really messed me up, like really, was the towels. I know how that sounds. And I see, up ahead, floating shapes moving toward me. At first, my brain goes, plastic bags, wind, debris. That's what you tell yourself. But then they get closer, and I realize they're the size of big bath towels, like full-on towels, folding, drifting, kind of rippling. And the worst part was, they had these small face shapes in them. Not like a human face, more like a little mask or a little knot of features right where you'd expect to see birds if you were looking up. It was clear. No blur, no fog, no trick lighting. I stood there staring like my body forgot how to move, and these things just floated toward me like they were curious, or like they knew I was looking. I got home and sat there with all the lights on, just trying to make my brain accept what I saw. But even that wasn't the most disturbing thing. The most disturbing thing was the giant. I don't even like saying this out loud. I was coming down the higher road one day, the one that overlooks my property. You can see the pine line and the slope down to where my trailers sit, and I saw something big near my land. It looked green, like it was made of forest, but also mechanical, like a robotic shape wearing the idea of trees. Tall, too tall, and it looked like it was holding something, like a tool or a device, like it was doing work. And here's the part that still makes me feel sick. The moment I noticed it, it reacted like it realized I could see it. It turned, not like an animal turns, like a machine swivels. And then it did this fast, impossible movement where it kind of phased back toward my property, like it folded into the space near this huge pine tree I have, like it stepped out of the angle of reality. I stood there frozen, honestly thinking, if I run, will it chase me? If I stay, will it come back? I've heard people talk about DMT experiences, mechanical beings, elf-like things, mantis-looking entities. I'm not saying I was on anything. I don't do that. But what I saw reminded me of those descriptions so much it makes my skin crawl. And yeah, there have been other moments too. I've seen bushes and trees shift shape in ways that don't make sense. Not like wind moved it. More like the pattern changed, like the structure got rewritten for a second and then snapped back. Like the land itself is unstable. I've also had this repeated thought that flight paths might be part of it. This is real. My place sits right between two major airline routes. On one side, planes move in a steady line, one direction, like clockwork. On the other side, another steady stream in the opposite direction. It's constant, civilian, cargo, sometimes stuff that looks government or military. And I keep wondering if elevation plus whatever's going on up here makes it worse. Like I'm sitting in the middle of some corridor. I'm telling you all this because I'm done. I'm tired. I'm drained. I'm putting the property up for rent because I can't handle it anymore. I'm moving back toward the city because at least when you're surrounded by people, it's harder for the dark to feel so personal. But before I go, I need help. I need someone who actually investigates this kind of thing to come out here. Someone with equipment. Someone who's not just going to make fun of it. I'm not asking anyone to automatically believe me. I'm asking for someone to take it seriously enough to check. Because whatever this is, it's been living alongside me for too long. And I don't want to live with it anymore. So, I grew up in this modest little apartment with my mom and my 4 siblings. It was always loud, always busy. One of those homes where you're never really alone, even when you want to be. The apartment had this long, enclosed balcony that ran almost the entire length of it. It was actually pretty spacious. There was furniture out there and everything, but we barely used it. It just kind of existed, like an extra room we forgot we had. Then one day I begged my mom for a pet. And somehow I ended up with a tiny kitten. We named him Miso. Miso was adorable, but oh my God, at night, a menace. He'd sprint around, knock things over, meow like he was giving a concert. Nobody could sleep, so we started putting him out on the balcony at night so the rest of us could finally get some rest. And it worked, until it didn't. One night, I'm talking like 2:40 in the morning, that weird hour where the whole world feels paused, I woke up suddenly. No nightmare, no sound, nothing. Just this strong urge to check on Miso, like my body decided for me. So I got up and groggy, and I walked over to the balcony door. The curtains were drawn, and I remember feeling like I didn't want to make noise. I pulled the curtain back just a little and peered through the glass. Miso was easy to spot because he had that bright ginger-orange fur that practically glows even in dim light. And I saw him sitting way at the far end of the balcony, in the corner furthest from my room. But he wasn't curled up. He wasn't playing. He was sitting perfectly still, just staring upward at the corner near the ceiling, not blinking, not moving. And I stood there thinking, what are you looking at? Then, without warning, Miso stood up. His whole body puffed out like a bottle brush, the way cats do when they're absolutely terrified. He arched his back, his fur spiked up, and for half a second it looked like he was frozen in panic. And then, he bolted. He ran the entire length of that balcony straight toward my side, like something had chased him, and he shot under the couch that was pushed against the wall near my room. I swear, the speed of it, the urgency, it didn't look like normal kitten zoomies. It looked like fear, and I just stood there, heart pounding, staring through the glass like I forgot how to breathe. I didn't go outside. I didn't open the door. I didn't call his name. I backed away, climbed into bed, pulled the blanket over my head like a little kid, and just stayed there until I fell asleep again. And after that, yeah, Miso never slept on that balcony at night again. Not once. But the part that really messed with me is what happened after. Because not long after that night, weird things started happening in the apartment. Things that didn't feel like, oh, maybe the wind did it, or maybe I imagined it. It felt like something was sharing the space with us. One evening, we were eating dinner, and the curtains in the living room shifted, like someone had brushed past them. There were no open windows, no fan, nothing. At night, I'd be lying in bed and feel the mattress dip, like someone had sat down, or worse, like something had laid down beside me. You know that subtle movement when weight transfers across a bed? That. My sister Hannah had it the worst. She'd hear knocking, sharp, deliberate knocks, from one room. She'd go to check, and as soon as she reached the door, the knocking would start in another room, like it was leading her around on purpose. My brother Yusuf woke up one night and swore he saw the outline of a figure beside him in bed, like someone was sleeping there. He said it wasn't a shadow from the hallway. It had shape, it had weight, and he felt sick just talking about it. My mom told us she'd wake up feeling something tugging at her blanket, like hands trying to pull it away. She's not the kind of person who scares easily, so hearing her say that in a steady voice, that was enough. I went into the living room one night to pray. The apartment was quiet, lights low, and I started reciting Quran out loud. I wasn't even thinking about anything paranormal. I was just trying to focus. But as soon as I began reciting, I saw the couch cushion shift, like someone sat down, like the cushion compressed under invisible weight. I froze. Every part of me wanted to stop, but I forced myself to keep going, even though my throat felt dry and my hands were trembling. I kept my eyes down and just continued reciting like I didn't see it. And later, in my room, I started noticing shadows, movement in the corners at night that didn't match cars outside or streetlight patterns. Just a glide, a flicker, like something passing where nothing should be. And here's the thing, we didn't have these problems before. It felt like, after that night on the balcony, something had noticed us, or we'd noticed it. And once that door opened, it didn't close. But when we moved out of that apartment, everything stopped. just stopped. Like someone shut off a radio that had been playing in the background for months. No knocks, no shifting curtains, no weight on the bed, nothing. And that's why, when people ask me what I think it was, I always hesitate, because I know how it sounds. But I also know what we lived through. We're Muslim, and we believe in jinn, creations of God that exist alongside us. We can't see them in their natural form, but they can see us. And we're not meant to interact with them. But like humans, they're not all the same. Some mind their own business. Some are curious. Some are harmful. Some are downright malicious. We're taught that they're more active after sunset, and that's part of why we're advised to close windows and doors at night. Not out of superstition, but as a kind of spiritual caution. Like, don't leave things open. Don't invite attention. And we also believe they can take forms, animals, people, but that something will often feel off. The eyes, the expression, the energy. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what Miso saw in that corner, but I've never forgotten the way his whole body reacted, like he was looking at something I couldn't see. And I think that night was the first time the apartment showed us we weren't alone. Okay, so I need you to hear me out, because I know how this sounds. But I swear on everything, I've had 2 different presences, spirits, whatever you want to call them, that seem to think my house is their personal lost and found. And before you picture some creaky old horror movie house, this is the house I grew up in. I know the sounds. I know the corners. I know what normal feels like here. That's why it messes with me so much when something clearly not normal happens. So the first weird chapter started a few years back, right after my husband, Evan, and I moved in together. I was out antique shopping, because I'm a sucker for old furniture, and I found this gorgeous vintage vanity. Like heavy wood, pretty details, the kind of thing that feels like it has a story baked into it. I brought it home and put it in what was, at the time, our little pet room. And then, my stuff started vanishing in a way that didn't make sense. It was mostly my nose jewelry. I'd go to sleep with one of those clicker rings in, one of the kind you have to actually work at to open. And I'd wake up and it would be gone. Not in the bed, not on the floor, not caught in my hair, just gone. And the part that made my stomach twist? A couple days later, it would show up sitting neatly on top of that vanity, in a totally different room. Sometimes they never came back at all. Sometimes they'd return like nothing happened, almost like someone was messing with me, just to see if I'd notice. At one point, I had this little glass dish, super cute, held all my extra rings, and it disappeared. I tore that room apart. I mean, I checked drawers, baskets, under furniture, the whole thing. A few days later, it was back on the vanity, but in a different spot than where I always kept it, like it had been placed there on purpose. I tried to be logical, truly. I told myself maybe I was knocking things loose in my sleep. Except, no. These rings weren't the kind you casually lose. You don't accidentally sleep remove something you basically have to pry open. Eventually, I got so irritated that I started running my mouth, mostly to Evan, but sometimes out loud, like, "Okay, funny, give me my stuff back." I was snarky about it. I'm not proud. And then one morning, the spirit, if that's what it was, decided to humble me. My keys disappeared right before work. I dumped my bag out on the floor. I shook it. I checked every pocket, every zipper, every little hidden compartment. Nothing. I was already running late, so my coworker, Jade, picked me up since I'm only a few minutes from my job. I even checked my bag again at work, like, maybe I'm being dramatic. Still nothing. Later that night, Evan, sweet, calm, diplomatic Evan, just stood in the kitchen and said, very politely, "If you have her keys, could you please give them back?" And I'm not kidding. When we went out to grab groceries and make replacement copies, I reached into my bag for the spare keys, and my fingers touched my entire keychain. Everything. House keys, work fob, little keyring charm. All of it. Just sitting in there like it had been there all along. I swear my blood ran cold. Because I know what an empty purse feels like. I checked it like 5 times. Not long after that, I ended up seeing a woman who claimed she could clear the energy. I don't know what she did, and I'm not saying everyone should run out and do that, but after that, things settled down. Like the house exhaled. That phase ended. Which should have been the end of the story, right? Except it wasn't. About a month ago, Evan grabbed our headlamp to mess with the furnace. Next day, it's missing. We both looked everywhere. 2 days later, it's suddenly sitting out in the open, like impossible to miss. I remember saying, "Oh, you found it." And he just stared at me and went, "I thought you found it." Then the house started doing that thing where it sounds like someone is nearby. Floor creaks, like footsteps shifting weight just outside the room. You look up expecting to see someone, and there's nobody. Not even the dog. Nothing. The moment that really got me, though, was my grandma. She was babysitting our newborn, tiny little thing, only a few months old, and she felt someone tap her on the shoulder. She turned around, ready to scold one of us for sneaking up on her. And no one was there. And my grandma is not someone who chases spooky explanations. She's very practical, very faith-based, the type who'd normally brush this off. So for her to even bring it up, and to look genuinely unsettled, that hit me hard. And then we started seeing the little stuff. Movement in the corner of your eye. Both of us. The kind that makes you glance toward the hallway thinking, "Was that you?" And the other person goes, "No, I thought that was you." Twice, one of my kids' balls rolled across the floor with nobody near it. Not kicked, not bumped, just rolled. Slow and steady, like it had a destination. But the thing that pushed me over the edge happened right around the holidays. I was hosting Christmas Eve, so you know that deep clean frenzy where your house is spotless in a way it never is any other time. I stripped all the cushion covers and pillow covers from the sunroom, washed everything, and I was doing my final putback before bed. 2 matching throw pillows usually sit on 2 chairs out there. I remember them clearly because I'm the one who bought them, and I'm weird about symmetry. I go to put the covers back on, and I only have 1 pillowcase. At first I thought, fine, I left the other one in the dryer, no big deal. But then I went to grab the second pillow and no pillow, just gone, like the chair had never had it. So now I'm standing there in this perfectly clean house, holding 1 pillowcase like an idiot, and I can feel myself getting mad in that helpless way. I made Evan get out of bed and help me search. We checked the dryer. We checked closets, laundry baskets, behind chairs, under beds, the guest room, the baby's room. Everything. There were no piles, no clutter, nowhere for it to hide. And here's the part that makes me feel like I'm losing it. The pillowcase disappeared from the dryer, and the pillow disappeared from the chair the same day. Like someone took the set. Days later, it still hasn't turned up. I even went through my phone and found a picture from earlier where you can clearly see both pillows. So no, I'm not misremembering. No Mandela effect. There were 2. Now there's 1. And there's this weird tension in the house like it's waiting for me to react. And honestly, I don't even know what I'm asking for anymore. Validation? A rational explanation? Someone to tell me I'm not nuts? Because what are the odds that I had one thing attached to an antique before, and now there's another one here doing the same hide and return routine? I do collect antiques. I've got some old oddities, nothing extreme, but enough that you could argue I'm basically inviting history into my house. And lately it feels like something in that history is getting a little too comfortable. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So, last night I'm in bed, fully in my little cozy zone, just watching this show and trying to wind down. Nothing dramatic, nothing weird. And then out of nowhere, at 12:34 a.m., I get a text notification from my mom. Which, okay, already odd. My mom doesn't text me in the middle of the night unless something's wrong. But what really threw me was the notification itself. We use iMessage, and I know what an iPhone notification looks like. This one looked off, like it didn't belong on my phone. It was split weirdly across the screen, almost like the message was cut in half horizontally. I could see the top part clearly, but the bottom half was blurred, like my phone was trying to hide it. And before I could even blink and be like, "What is this?" it just vanished. Gone. I checked the Messages app immediately. Nothing there. No new message, no weird draft, no delivered, nothing. But in that tiny second before it disappeared, I caught part of what it said. It was like, "Riley, come out here and check." That's it. Just that. No full sentence, no second text, no explanation. Just enough to feel deliberate, and not enough to make sense. And here's the layout, just so you get why this freaked me out. My room is right up on the landing at the top of the stairs. My mom's room is down the hall from mine, same floor, not downstairs. So I'm sitting there like, why would she text me come out here at midnight? Out where? And why is it cut off? I opened my bedroom door and looked out into the hallway. Dead quiet. No lights, no movement, nothing. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like you're the only person awake in the entire world. So I'm like, okay, maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I imagined it. I shut my door and try to go back to my show. A few minutes later, I hear footsteps downstairs. Not like soft, someone's grabbing water footsteps. Heavy ones. The kind you feel in your chest a little. And then, not long after that, I hear someone say, "Come on." Clear as day. Loud. Right outside my bedroom door. And I swear to you, it sounded exactly like my mom. Same tone, same cadence, like she was annoyed and trying to get someone to hurry up. My stomach dropped. I got up and opened my door, well, my main door. I also have this second screen door for no good reason, like my room is a porch or something. So the wooden door swings open, but the screen door stays shut. And through that screen door, I see a shadow on the staircase, like 3 steps down. Just a shape where a shape should not be. The second my brain registered it, I slammed everything shut so fast I surprised myself. I dove back into bed like my mattress was the only safe zone on earth, heart hammering so hard it felt like it was shaking my ribs. After that, I stayed completely still. I could still hear movement downstairs, more footsteps, and what sounded like whispering. But I couldn't make out words. Just that low, secretive sound like people talking without wanting to be heard. And then, this part honestly made it worse. About 15 minutes later, my rabbit starts thumping, like frantic, repeated thumps. He's free roam, so he was across the room from me, and he is not a dramatic rabbit. He doesn't thump unless he's genuinely scared, and he wouldn't stop. It was like he was trying to warn me, like he could sense something I couldn't see. At that point, I didn't feel safe leaving my room at all. I just stayed there, listening, trying to convince myself I was being irrational, while my body was screaming that something was wrong, which I already knew she'd say. but I still wanted her to say it, just to calm my brain down a little. And look, I know how this sounds. I'm trying to stay logical about it. Maybe it was a weird notification bug. Maybe I was half asleep. Maybe my brain filled in gaps. But in the moment, it genuinely scared me, like real fear, the kind where you don't even want to swing your feet off the bed. And yes, I'm aware I would absolutely be the first one taken out in a scary movie. Like I'd hear, "Come on," and be like, "Okay," and walk straight into the darkness with zero survival instincts. So, love that for me. I don't even know where to start with this, so I'm just going to tell you the whole thing the way it's been sitting in my chest. So, Christmas Day, yesterday, one of my roommate's cats died, and I can't stop thinking about the fact that I feel like I already watched it happen before it did. Not in the exact real-life way, not perfectly scene for scene, but close enough that it's been messing with my head ever since. Me and a few friends live together in this shared apartment, separate rooms, separate little corners of our lives, but we're basically always together. Between us, we've got 5 cats total. 4 are hers, and 1 is mine. They're always underfoot, always nearby, always quietly included in whatever we're doing, like they're part of the group without needing to try. About a week and a half ago, I had this dream. In the dream, I'm trying to protect all the cats from a dog. And here's the thing that made it feel so wrong right away. The dog wasn't a stranger. It looked like my old dog, Milo, the one I had years ago. He died a long time back, but in the dream he was there, and he was furious, lunging, snapping, like he wanted to hurt them. And I remember crying so hard I could barely breathe. I was screaming, grabbing at collars, shoving cats behind me, trying to block this dog with my own body like that would somehow be enough. In the dream, I managed to save most of them, but not all. There was one white cat. I swear I can still see him so clearly. And in the chaos, he got bitten. The dream was brutal, bloody, too vivid. The kind of vivid that doesn't feel like imagination. It feels like memory. I tried to pull him away. I tried to hold him together, like if I just tried hard enough, I could undo it. But I couldn't. And right when I was still fighting, still begging for another chance, I woke up. Only I didn't wake up relieved. I woke up panicked, like my body didn't understand it was just a dream. I remember lying there thinking, "No, let me go back. Let me go back. I can fix it. I can save him if I get one more try." And what's strange is, I didn't even feel anger at the dog in the dream, because it looked like Milo. I felt confused, almost betrayed, like, why would you do that? I kept spiraling into these ridiculous explanations, like maybe he was jealous, maybe he was angry that I had moved on and brought cats into my life after him. I was trying to give the dream logic because it felt too sharp to ignore. But still, I did ignore it, eventually. Life kept moving, and then Christmas Day happened. It was so fast. Under an hour, everything was different. We still don't know exactly how it happened. The balcony door had been left cracked open, just enough, apparently. And somehow, my friend's white cat, Casper, slipped out. And that's what kills me. Casper wasn't reckless. He wasn't the kind that bolted. He was the calm one, the careful one, the one you trusted. We think he might have hopped up onto the balcony railing chasing a bird, or a moth, or something tiny and harmless like that. We don't know for sure. All we know is we suddenly heard neighbors yelling, real screaming, the kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. We ran outside, and by the time we got there, the stray dogs were already on him. People were shouting. Someone threw something. Someone tried to chase the dogs off. For a second, it felt like the whole building poured out into the open, like everyone became one frantic blur of voices and movement and helplessness. And there he was, alive, but barely. And I remember seeing the bite marks on his upper leg, his thigh, and I swear to you, my whole body went cold. Because the wound was in the same place. The exact same place I had seen in my dream. He was panting, struggling, fading, while we stood there begging him to stay. We rushed him toward the vet, holding on to hope like it was the only thing keeping us upright. Somebody kept talking to him, telling him he was okay, telling him to hold on, like words could stitch him back together. But we lost him on the way. They tried. They really did. But they couldn't bring him back. And then, this part still feels unreal to say out loud. I saw one of the dogs that had attacked him, and that dog had the same coloring as Milo, the same kind of coat, the same shape. Not identical, but close enough to make my stomach twist. So now I'm sitting with all of that layered on top of the grief. The white cat I couldn't save in my dream. The white cat we couldn't save in real life. The dog that resembled the one I lost years ago. And I know how it sounds. I do. I keep telling myself dreams are just dreams, patterns, fear, coincidence. But it doesn't feel like coincidence when your body recognizes something before your mind can argue with it. And the worst part is, this isn't even the first time I've had dreams that feel like warnings. Like something tapping me on the shoulder before something happens, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know why my brain does it. I don't know what it means, or if it means anything at all. All I know is I'm devastated. A life ended in one unguarded hour, one slightly open door, one moment of normal that turned into tragedy. And now everything in the apartment feels quieter in this unnatural way, like the air itself is missing a piece. And I keep looping the same questions, over and over, like I'm trying to punish myself into finding a better ending. Should I have told my friend about the dream? Should we have been more careful? Should I have taken it seriously instead of brushing it off? I can't make sense of it. I can't believe it happened on Christmas of all days. And more than anything, I just wish, so badly, it worked the way it does in dreams. That you could wake up, go back, and save the one you couldn't the first time. Okay, so before I tell you this, I need you to know where I'm coming from. I'm not someone who's into seances, necromancy, mediums, or any of that. I was raised Christian, but it never really stayed with me. For years I called myself an atheist, pretty confidently actually. But after a few specific moments that I still can't explain, I don't know. These days I lean more agnostic, like, I don't know what's out there, but I'm not going to pretend I'm certain anymore. The first time it happened was back in 2017, when my great-grandmother, Evelyn, though we all called her Nana Ev, passed away. She wasn't exactly on death's doorstep. She'd been living in a care home a couple states away. I'd seen her at Thanksgiving not long before, and honestly, she looked fine. Not frail, not fading, just unhappy. She'd always been fiercely independent, the kind of woman who hated needing help for anything, and having people do everything for her had chipped away at her spirit. Then one day I was sitting in class, just a normal school day, nothing dramatic happening. And out of nowhere, I felt this heavy pressure on my chest. Not pain exactly, more like someone had set a weight right on me. And with it came this sudden dread, like my stomach dropped, like I just received bad news without hearing a word of it. But then, this is the part that throws me. Right after the dread came this strange calm, like a wave smoothing everything out. Quiet, soft, almost gentle. And immediately, my mind went to Nana Ev. It wasn't even a thought I chose. It just landed there. She's gone. I texted my mom, asking if she'd heard anything about her. She said no, nothing. So I tried to shrug it off, told myself I'd spooked myself for no reason. But later that evening, during dinner, my mom got the call. Nana Ev had passed peacefully in her sleep during an afternoon nap. I didn't say anything about what I'd felt. I honestly thought it was just some weird coincidence, my brain reaching for a story to explain a random sensation. Then it happened again. This time it was the next year, 2018, when my grandmother on my mom's side passed. Her name was Marlene, but we called her Mimi. And with her, it wasn't sudden. She'd been battling cancer for a long time, and the last time I saw her, it was clear she was close. She was exhausted in that deep way that isn't just tiredness, it's like the body is ready to let go. My mom stayed at Mimi's house to be with her, while the rest of us drove back home. That night, I woke up in the dark with that same exact feeling. The weight on my chest, the sharp dread, like a warning alarm inside my body. And then, the calm again. Like something letting me down gently instead of dropping me. And I thought, immediately, Mimi. I tried to be rational about it. I remember even being annoyed at myself, like, okay, great, you're being dramatic. Go back to sleep. But I looked at the time anyway. It was just after 2:30 a.m. I fell back asleep. A couple hours later, I woke up to the sound of my mom coming in. Not just coming in, falling apart. I heard her crying before I even sat up. She went straight to my dad, and through the sobs, she told him Mimi had passed. Our house was a little over an hour away from Mimi's, so when I did the math later, it lined up in a way that made my skin go cold. 2 times could still be coincidence. 2 times could still be my brain picking up stress I didn't realize I was carrying. But it was the pattern that got to me. The same physical feeling, the same emotional sequence, the same instant certainty about who. This one was different because it wasn't someone I was close to. It was my dad's father, my granddad, Lionel. We weren't really a tight family with him. There wasn't regular contact, no warm relationship, none of that. So when I woke up with that familiar chest weight and dread calm combo, I didn't text anyone. I didn't even want to sound ridiculous. But I remember lying there in my dorm thinking, is it him? Why would I be thinking of him? The next morning, my dad got the news. Lionel had passed the day before. We never got an exact time, so I couldn't check it the way I could with the other 2. But still, it was the 3rd time I'd had that same hit, and then found out someone had died right around then. And now I'm home for the holidays, sitting in my mom's house, and we've both been talking about family who've passed. It's that time of year where memories feel closer, like the past is sitting in the room with you. And I've been debating telling her. But here's the thing. My mom is very religious, and she also believes in psychics and mediums, and I don't want to feed that part of it. I don't want her to hear my story and feel validated in giving money to people who claim they can connect with the dead, because I genuinely think a lot of them are predators. Like, if you had real powers like that, why would you be charging grieving people by the minute? So I've kept this to myself. And also, these are the only close deaths I've experienced. I don't have more examples. I don't have enough data to say, this is a thing I do, or this always happens. All I know is this. 3 times, my body reacted before I heard the news. 3 times, the feeling followed the same script. And it's left me in this weird middle place, where I don't want to invent magic, but I also can't fully explain what happened. And honestly, I think what I want most isn't an answer. I think I just want to say it out loud to someone who won't tell me I'm crazy, or try to sell me a reading. So, this happened about 8 or 9 years ago, and it still pops into my head out of nowhere sometimes, usually at night when everything's quiet. Back then, I was stretched out on the couch with my girlfriend. She's my wife now, Mara. We were half watching some movie, half dozing, just that cozy end-of-day kind of calm. And my phone rings. At the time, I used to get scam calls constantly. Like, constantly. And I'll be honest, I'd mess with them. Not even out of anger, more like boredom. I'd put on this ridiculous voice, lean into it way too hard, and Mara would laugh. So naturally, I'd crank it up even more just to keep her giggling. So I answer, already in character, and I'm like, "Hello?" all goofy. And there's nothing. Just silence. I try again. "Hello?" Still nothing. I glance over at Mara like, okay, this is weird, and I put the phone on speaker so she can hear it too. I'm still trying to keep the joke alive because I'm committed at this point, right? I say something dumb again, waiting for the scammer to bite. And then, someone talks. And I swear to you, the voice sounded exactly like Mara. Not kinda similar. Not close enough. I mean her. Same southern drawl, same rhythm, same little quirks in how she says things. The two of us just lock eyes, because it hits both of us at the same time like a cold splash of water. And the voice goes, casual as anything, "Hey Evan, what are you doing?" And the second it says my name, every ounce of joking evaporates. My stomach just drops. I go, "Who is this?" And the voice, still sounding like her, goes, almost annoyed, like I'm being stupid. "It's me, Mara, obviously." I'm staring at my actual Mara sitting right next to me, and my brain is trying to reboot. I say, "No, it's not. She's literally right here. Who the hell is this?" And the voice laughs a little, like I'm the one pulling a prank. Okay, very funny. So what are you up to today?" That's the part that messed with me the most. It wasn't just the voice. It was how comfortable it sounded. Like whoever it was had known me for years. Like nothing about this was strange. I hung up. Just ended it. Mara's looking at me like she saw a ghost, and I'm looking at her like I'm trying to confirm she's real. I asked her immediately, "Did you have one of your friends call me? Is this some prank?" She swore she didn't, and she looked genuinely shaken, like pale, quiet, the kind of shaken where you don't even know what to say because your mouth is dry. We're both just sitting there in this weird silence, the TV still going, but it might as well not be. Then my phone rings again. Same number. I pick up, speaker still on, and it's the same voice, but now it's irritated. "Why did you hang up?" And then, sharper, "What the hell is going on?" I didn't say a word that time. I just hung up again. And that was it. No more calls, no follow-up, nothing. Like it never happened. And I know how it sounds. I know it's one of those stories that, if someone told it to me, I'd probably start trying to explain it away too. Wrong number, coincidence, someone who happened to sound similar, maybe even someone using one of those voice-changing apps. But it wasn't just similar. It was her. Down to sentence patterns, down to the little ways she'd phrase something. And it knew my name immediately, like it expected me to respond normally. What was that? To this day, I honestly don't know if it was some elaborate prank, some freaky coincidence, or something way more mundane that just happened to land in the creepiest possible way. I've gone back and forth with it a million times, and I'm not saying I have an answer. I don't. I just know it happened, and I've never forgotten the sound of her voice coming from my phone while she was sitting right beside me. I don't know if you've ever played scatterjacks, or maybe you called it something else where you grew up, but when I was a kid, it was everything for a while. It was one of those simple little games adults barely notice. A rubber ball, a handful of metal jacks, and a floor you didn't mind kneeling on for an hour straight. My little brother Eli and I used to play it constantly at our place. And it wasn't just us. Kids from up and down the street would wander over after school like it was an unspoken rule. We'd end up with, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 of us crammed into the living room, laughing, arguing over whose turn it was, and listening to that very specific soundtrack. Thump thump of the ball, and that sharp little click clack when someone scooped up the jacks. It became this cozy routine, like the neighborhood had its own heartbeat for an hour every afternoon. And honestly, nothing felt weird about it at all. Until one day it did. It was maybe 10 days after we'd really gotten into the habit, long enough that it felt normal. That afternoon, we weren't even playing. We were sprawled out in front of the TV, half watching some cartoon, half zoning out. The jacks weren't out. The ball wasn't out. Nobody was taking turns. We were just sitting there. Then we heard it. That sound. The exact scatterjacks sound. The rubber ball bouncing. Thump, thump. And the jacks tapping like someone was picking them up. Click, click, click. At first I thought maybe someone was messing with us. Like Eli was hiding the ball behind his back, waiting for the perfect moment to be annoying. But we all turned and stared at each other at the same time, and you could tell instantly. Nobody was joking. The sound kept going, and it wasn't coming from the living room. It was coming from down the hall. We got up, slowly, like our bodies were trying to convince our brains not to, and followed it to the spare bedroom. The door was open. We could see straight in. Nobody was in there. No jacks on the floor. No ball. Nothing rolled under the bed. Nothing in the corner. Nothing on the dresser. Just a quiet, ordinary room. Except it wasn't quiet, because the game sounds were still happening. Like an invisible kid was kneeling on the carpet, playing a perfect round like it had done it 1,000 times. I remember the feeling in my stomach more than anything. It wasn't dramatic, like in movies. It was worse than that, because it was so normal looking and so impossible at the same time. Like your brain keeps reaching for an explanation and your hands come back empty. We just stood there. Nobody wanted to step fully into the room. And then my dad showed up. My father, Pastor Ronan, though we never called him that at home, was a deeply religious man. Not casually, not goes to church on holidays. I mean the kind of person who could quote scripture the way other dads quote sports stats. He'd been a preacher for a few years before taking a regular job again, but that faith never left him. He took one look at us standing there like statues, heard the sound, and he didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He just started praying out loud. And I swear to you, as soon as he did, the bouncing and clicking started to thin out, like turning down the volume on a radio. Thump, thump, click, softer, slower. For a second, I thought it was over. Then it started again, sudden and clear, but not in the bedroom, in the laundry room. We all snapped our heads toward the other end of the house, and my dad immediately walked that direction, still praying like he was following it. When he got there, the sound faded again, same as before, like it couldn't stand to stay in the same place where he was praying. That's the part I can't explain without sounding ridiculous, but it truly felt like the prayer wasn't stopping it. It was moving it, like the sound was being pushed out of rooms one by one, retreating deeper into the house, like it was looking for somewhere my dad's voice couldn't reach. This happened a few more times. Pantry, then the hallway closet, then This one still gives me chills. The bathroom, where the echo made it sound even sharper, like the jacks were tapping right against the tile. Each time my dad followed, each time he prayed, each time the sound would weaken and then jump somewhere else, as if it refused to go quietly, but also couldn't hold its ground. Finally, after what felt like forever, but was probably only a couple minutes, it just stopped. Not faded, not drifted away, stopped, like someone had cut a string. And the house went so still that it felt like we were all holding our breath at the same time. After that, Scatterjacks was done. We didn't have to make a big rule about it, though my dad did pack the game away. But honestly, none of us even wanted to look at it. The fun had drained out of it like a light turning off. The ball and the jacks just felt wrong, like they belonged to something else now. What's wild is, years later, we'd bring it up sometimes, at family gatherings or when Eli and I were reminiscing, and it always made the room go quiet for a moment. Because everyone who was there remembers the sound the same way. The way it moved, the way it felt. And we did ask the neighborhood kids as we got older, the ones who used to come over all the time. We'd phrase it casually like, "Hey, do you remember that game? Did anything weird ever happen at your house?" Every single one of them said no. Nothing like that. Not once. Just us. Just that afternoon. And to this day, whenever I hear a rubber ball bouncing somewhere, like in a gym or a driveway, I get this tiny jolt in my chest. Because for a split second, my brain expects to hear the click-clack of jacks right after it, even though I haven't touched that game in years. So, this happened when I was maybe 13, 14 at the most, at this church camp I used to go to. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that even now, years later, I get that full body rush of chills when I tell it. Like goosebumps in the middle of a heat wave, no joke. It was late, around 10 p.m. give or take, and me and 3 friends were messing around playing this kind of hide-and-seek tag game. There was me, Kayla, Devin, and Marco. We were walking toward the spot where we were going to start, just laughing and being loud like kids are when they're supposed to be settling down for the night. And that's when we saw it. There were these big metal dumpsters by one of the maintenance areas, like the kind you see at construction sites. And we noticed a head pop up over the edge. Just peek, like someone was watching us. Of course, we didn't do the smart thing and leave it alone. We did the teenage thing. We got all whispery and decided we were going to sneak up and catch whoever it was. So we split, 2 on one side, 2 on the other, thinking we'd box them in. Devin did this little whistle signal, like we were in some action movie, and we all moved in at the same time. We rounded the corner and nothing. No one. We even checked inside the dumpster, like actually leaned in and looked, which is disgusting when I think about it now, and it was empty. No footprints, no rustling, no sound. Just trash and darkness. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Someone running down the slope away from us, headed toward another cluster of cabins. It was a decent distance, maybe the length of a football field. And again, we did the teenage thing. We chased. At first it felt kind of exciting, like, oh, we caught somebody messing with us. But as we got closer to the other campsite, the vibe changed. The path narrowed and the trees got thicker, and suddenly it didn't feel like camp anymore. It felt like we weren't supposed to be there. We slowed down a little, and that's when it happened. About 10 feet in front of us, right there in the trees, a face appeared from behind a trunk. And I don't know how else to describe it except it was wrong. Not just someone in the dark, but like the darkness itself had a face, It was so unnaturally dark that it looked like it swallowed the light around it. I don't even remember us deciding to move. I just remember, all at once, we were clustered behind Marco, because he was the biggest out of us, and he had this pocket knife out, like that was going to do anything. His hand was shaking so hard I could see it. The face vanished, and we all just stood there, barely breathing. Because the tree it peeked from, listen, was thin. Not skinny, but thin enough that there's no way a full person could hide behind it. There wasn't room. There wasn't space. And then, like a second later, it popped out from a completely different tree. Not walking over, not stepping out. It was just there. Then it moved again, ran or glided or hovered. I honestly don't know. The motion didn't look human. It didn't look like feet hitting the ground. It was like something sliding through the air, low and fast. And then it disappeared behind this little sapling that was even thinner than the first one. And that was it for us. We didn't scream. We didn't talk. We just turned around and got out of there as fast as we could without tripping over ourselves. But when I tried to tell someone, I couldn't. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Like my voice was just gone. My throat worked, my lungs worked, I could breathe, but it was like my vocal cords refused to cooperate. Like one of those nightmares where you try to scream and you can't make a sound. I stood there for what felt like forever, just shaking, trying to force words out. And it took, I swear, like 15 minutes before my voice finally came back. When it did, we found this older guy. His name was Brandon. I think he was maybe 18 or 19, and we told him everything, every detail we could remember. And he kind of did that older kid thing where he acts calm, but you can tell he's curious. Like he wanted to believe us, but he didn't want to look like he believed us. So he and a couple of his friends convinced us to go back out there and explain it again. Just show us where it happened, tell it step by step. Even worse, he separated us, put us in different spots and had us tell it individually, like he was trying to catch someone lying. And here's what still messes with me. All four of us told the same story. Same dumpster, same running shape, same face, same trees, same movement. By that point, I was a mess. Barely talking, voice thin and shaky, arms covered in goosebumps. I remember Brandon walking with us, still skeptical but quieter now. And then, he saw it. I didn't even have to point. I saw his whole body stiffen. His face went white, like all the blood drained out at once. And whatever he saw, whatever we saw, hit him the exact same way it hit us. That terror, the instant animal panic. He whispered something like, "Nope," and we all rushed back inside, fast, clumsy, tripping over roots, not caring if we looked ridiculous. When we got back into the building, adults started crowding around us, asking what happened, telling us to sit down. And I remember one of them touching my cheek and saying, "Honey, your face is so pale you look dead." And I know how that sounds. I know it sounds like campfire story stuff. But I'm telling you, hand to my heart, something was out there that night. And every time I remember that face in the trees, I get those chills all over again. So, I've never really been a paranormal person. Like, I'm not out here thinking about ghosts or demons or any of that. My Aunt Marisol and a couple of my friends totally believe in the gentler side of it. Past loved ones checking in, little signs, guidance, that kind of thing. And honestly, I've always been like, sure, maybe. And then I just move on with my life. I never really left room in my head for anything darker. But after what happened the other night, I'm not gonna lie, I've been jumpy in a way I've never been before. I'd been visiting family for the holidays, and I flew home late because the tickets were way cheaper the day after Christmas. The whole day was chaos. My flight got delayed, and I spent hours convinced my checked bag was just gone. Like, permanently. So I'm pacing, checking emails, checking claim numbers, checking my phone every 30 seconds. And by the time I finally get home, it's around midnight, and my nerves are completely cooked. And the weird thing is, I'm not even tired. I slept through most of the flight, and I kind of dozed in the terminal too. So I'm home, it's quiet, and I'm like, okay, I just need something normal. I collect Lego sets, so I sit down at my desk and start building one I've been saving for a while. I put on this comfort show, something I've watched a bunch of times, just for background noise. I'm trying to force my brain back into safe mode, you know? Maybe 20 minutes in, I hear this thunk, like something solid hitting the floor. I freeze. I pause the show. I rewind because I'm half convinced it was just the TV and my stressed out brain is being dramatic. But no, I play it again. Nothing like that sound. The apartment is quiet again, and I'm also realizing I'm still in yesterday's clothes, like I've been marinating in airport air for a full day. So I'm like, fine, I'll go change, and I'll check what that sound was while I'm at it. The sound came from this little laundry and storage room off the hallway, kind of where I keep extra clothes, towels, random boxes, all that. There's also a small bed in there for when someone visits. So I walk in, flip on the light, and immediately see what it was. A framed photo had slipped off its hook and fallen. It's this old picture of me with my childhood dog, Bramble, my first dog. He passed a few years ago, and I still keep that photo up because it makes me smile, even when I'm stressed. Seeing it on the floor felt sad, but not scary. Just one of those, oh no, moments. So I pick it up, straighten the hook, put it back on the wall. No big deal. I'm telling myself, it's fine. Old hook, or the door closing earlier, or whatever. And then, this is the part I hate even saying out loud, because it sounds like something out of a cheap horror scene. I'm turning slightly, like I'm about to grab clean clothes, and from the corner of my eye, I see movement near the little guest bed in the corner. Low to the floor. A hand. Like an actual hand shape, pulling backward, like someone was under the bed and yanking their arm out of sight. I saw it for a split second, but it was so clear that my stomach dropped before my brain even caught up. And I didn't do the brave movie thing. I didn't investigate. I didn't call out. I didn't even think. I just ran. Full panic. Heart pounding, skin cold, the whole thing. I'm 22 years old, like an adult, and I'm sprinting down the hallway like a scared kid. I slammed my bedroom door and stood there shaking, trying to convince myself I didn't see what I saw. For 10 minutes, I'm in my room just listening, holding my breath, waiting for a sound, waiting for footsteps, waiting for anything. And nothing happens, but I can't just leave it there. I can't go to sleep with that room just existing on the other side of the hallway like a question mark. So I do what a genius does when they're terrified. I grab the biggest kitchen knife I can find, and I march back down the hallway like I'm about to star in the world's saddest action movie. I flip the light on. Everything looks normal. No weird shapes, no movement, no sound. Just the bed, the shelves, the laundry hamper. Ordinary. And then I look over at the wall. The photo is on the floor again, and this time the frame is cracked. That is when I felt the fear settle in. Not like a jump scare, but like a heavy weight. Because one fall? Sure. 2 falls right after I hung it and cracked the frame? It just felt personal. Like the universe picked the one photo that could tug on my emotions and decided to knock it down twice. So I picked it up, didn't even try to fix it again, and I carried it back to my room. like it was something fragile in more ways than one. I stayed up the rest of the night, not even on my phone, not even watching anything, just listening, and nothing else happened. No footsteps, no doors, no whispering, no anything. Which almost makes it worse, because now I'm left alone with my imagination. Since then, I swear my senses are cranked up to 1,000. Every creak, every tiny settling noise, every little pop from the building. I'm hearing it all like it's right next to my ear. It's like my brain is scanning constantly now, trying to catch the next proof that something is wrong. And I keep going back and forth between two thoughts. One is, you were stressed, overtired, your eyes played a trick, and the picture hook is just loose. And the other is, okay, but then why did it feel so real? So yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't even know what I'm asking for. Maybe just someone to tell me I'm not losing it, or to give me a normal explanation that my brain can actually believe. Because right now, I'm home, but I don't feel fully settled in my own place anymore. Okay, so I need to tell you about something that happened to me that still feels unreal when I say it out loud. A couple nights before this, I went to a concert with my friend Maya. After the show, she was like, "Do you want to come hang out with someone I know?" And I was in that post-concert floaty mood, so I said yes. We ended up at this guy's place. His name was Eli, and it was my first time meeting him. And listen, I've always been open to spiritual stuff. Like, I grew up around people who talked about energy and intuition and all that. But I'd never actually had anything happen to me. Not like an encounter. That night with Eli felt different right away. The vibe in his apartment was intense, kind of unfamiliar, like the air was charged. We stayed up until literally almost sunrise, like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, just talking. Beliefs, energy, consciousness, spirituality. And Eli spoke like he'd been living inside that world for years. It wasn't creepy exactly, just a lot. Like I was hearing things my body recognized, but my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I ended up staying an extra day, and when I finally went home, it was late. I was in the Uber, headphones in, staring out the window like you do, half asleep. And at one point I closed my eyes and it was like, this sounds dramatic, but it was like I almost started getting these little flashes. Not a dream, not imagination, more like images arriving. The clearest one was a train, like the front of it, and railway tracks stretching out. It wasn't scary, just weirdly vivid. I remember opening my eyes and being like, huh, and then brushing it off. But then I got home. And this was my first night back in my own bed after all of that. So I'm lying there, drifting towards sleep. You know that moment where your thoughts are starting to dissolve and everything gets soft and heavy? And then, suddenly, I see this blue light. Like, not a glow from outside, not a reflection, not a car headlight. It was right there, super close to me. It was rising in the air above my pillow, maybe like a foot above it. And it had this clean, electric kind of blue. Not harsh, more like living. I sat up fast because I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm imagining this. But it didn't go away. And then, for some reason, I reached out. Like my body decided before I could talk myself out of it. I reached out and touched it, and it responded. That's the part that still gets me. It moved in the air where my hand was, like it was aware of my touch. And it started changing shape. It would stretch into one form, then fold into another, like it was playing or communicating. It slowly rose higher while I kept following it with my hand, kind of tracing it in the air. And I remember feeling this mixture of fascination and, I should be panicking right now. Eventually it faded, like it thinned out. And I exhaled like, okay, It's done. But then I stood up and saw it again. This time it wasn't floating. It looked like the remaining glow had kind of stuck itself to the wall above my bed, like it had anchored there, just sitting, quiet, present. That's when I fully freaked out. I basically speed walked downstairs like, nope, I need to change the air around me. I need a snack. I need a different reality. I stayed down there a while, trying to calm my nervous system down, telling myself maybe it was a visual thing. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe it was my eyes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had opened. So I went into my mom's room. My mom's name is Renee. And I sat on the edge of her bed to tell her what happened. I didn't even know what I wanted her to do. I just needed another human presence. And this is where it escalates. Not like a single shadow, like multiple, a lot. It looked like they were lined up. Honestly, it reminded me of that feeling in Spirited Away, where these spirits are just there, waiting, existing, like they have their own rules and routines. It was like a whole ocheride, like a queue, like they were waiting their turn. And I could feel them. That's what made it so intense. The way you feel energy in a crowded room, even if your eyes are closed, the density of other presences. That's what it felt like, except the room was quiet. I was frozen on the edge of the bed, and one would step forward, directly in front of me. Close, like within a foot, and it would just stand there, shifting subtly, like its outline couldn't decide what shape to be. And I got this impression of frustration, like it was trying to tell me something without words, and I was just not getting it. Then it would step away. Sometimes it even looked like it bowed, like a tiny, respectful dip, before fading back. And then the next one would come forward, one by one. I remember thinking, why is this so organized? Why does this feel like I accidentally walked into some spiritual DMV? And then one came forward that felt completely different. This one, I don't even know how to describe it without sounding ridiculous. It looked like it had a flower for a head, like petals, but not solid, more like shifting layers of shape and texture. It kept morphing, almost like it was made of soft smoke and light at the same time. But the feeling it brought was so gentle. As it stood there, this wave came over me. Wonder, love, curiosity, peace. Like my chest unclenched. And I got this sense, this really mutual sense, that it was looking at me the way I was looking at it. Like we were both kind of amazed by each other. We just stayed there for a moment, almost taking in each other's energy. It also felt like it was trying to communicate something, but I couldn't translate it. Like it was speaking in a language made of feeling, and I didn't have the subtitles. Eventually it stepped back, like the others. But then, this part is so clear in my memory. It started signaling to me, like with an arm, or what I interpreted as an arm. It motioned like, come with me, like it wanted me to follow it back to wherever it came from. And here's what's weird. It didn't feel threatening. It felt welcoming, almost inviting, like, we can show you something. But it also felt slightly annoyed that I wasn't moving, like, why aren't you understanding? Come on. Then I saw these other shapes, almost like arms too, reaching toward the bed, the side table, and toward me. Not grabbing exactly, more like touching or testing the space, like they were feeling around the room. And then something happened that made my stomach drop. My phone was on the side table next to me, screen facing up, and it looked like some of those shadowy forms were getting pulled toward it, like they were being sucked into the phone screen, almost like the screen was acting like a portal. I remember staring at it like, no, absolutely not. Not the iPhone portal, not tonight. At some point, I don't even remember how, the intensity eased, like a storm passing, like the room thinned out again. And the next morning, I noticed something I have never seen in my life. There were rainbows, like little rainbow light reflections, by every single window in my house. Not just one window with a prism effect, every window. multiple points of color, like the house itself was sparkling with it. And I stood there in the daylight, staring at those rainbows, and I just had this deep, quiet feeling like something had been active, like something had visited. But I do know this. After that night, it stopped being an abstract idea to me. It felt like something looked straight at me and said, without words, "Hi, you can see us." So, there are 2 times in my life where I've wanted an explanation so badly, it almost felt like an itch under my skin. Because I'm the kind of person who needs things to make sense. I've always leaned on science, logic, evidence, and honestly, that's part of why these memories won't leave me alone. Because the most unscientific thing I could do would be to pretend it didn't happen. Like my own senses don't count as data just because the why never showed up. And yeah, on the surface, someone could shrug and say, ghosts, easy label. But what makes it harder to dismiss is that the person I lived with at the time, my roommate, Marcus, saw them too. The exact same figures, the same details, the same awful, sinking feeling. And we didn't even talk about it for months, because we were both terrified the other one would laugh. The first place, the man at the door. Back in 2002, when I was in college, I lived in the dorms, but on weekends I'd crash at my friend Eli's apartment. Sometimes I'd stop by during weekday afternoons too, just to hang out or grab something I'd left there. The building was this 3-story block with an outdoor staircase and an outdoor balcony that ran along the front, doors lined up along it like little rectangles in a row. Eli's unit was on the top floor, about halfway down the balcony. Most of the time, going there was completely normal. Walk up, climb the stairs, let myself in. Half the time Eli wasn't even home, and that was fine. I'd just wait inside. But every once in a while, maybe once or twice a month, I'd get to the footpath outside the building and stop. Not like a casual pause, like my body just locked. And I'd know, before I even looked, exactly what I was going to see. Up there, outside Eli's door, maybe 40 meters away along that balcony, there would be a figure, a man. But not a normal man, more like a shadow shaped like a man, darker than the afternoon around him. He'd be standing right at the door with one hand lifted, frozen mid-motion, like he was about to slide a key into the lock. And then, this part still makes my stomach tighten, he'd turn his head, just slightly, like he'd sensed me. And even though I couldn't see facial features, I knew he was looking straight down at me, like his attention snapped onto mine and held there. We'd stare at each other for 2 or 3 seconds, and it felt intimate in the worst way, like being seen when you don't want to be. Then he'd turn back toward the door, and instead of opening it, he'd just pass through it, like the door wasn't even there. The first few times, I did what I always do. I tried to solve it. Okay, shadows, tree branches, weird lighting, optical illusion. I told myself my freezing was just the shock of seeing something unexpected. But there was another pattern I couldn't ignore. I only ever saw him when Eli wasn't home. And over time, it stopped feeling like some random visual glitch and started feeling intentional. Like the figure was trying to get inside before I came up the stairs. You know that feeling when you're in an elevator and there's someone walking toward you down the hallway and you're silently begging the doors to close faster? That's what it felt like coming off him. This urgent, get away from you energy. Like he didn't want me getting any closer. After months of this, it was driving me insane. I'd be standing there on the footpath, heart hammering, telling myself to move, telling myself it was nothing, and my legs still wouldn't work properly until it was over. And then one day I finally broke. Eli came home and I said, "Okay, you're going to think I've lost it, but you have to promise me you won't laugh." I remember my whole body going cold. I said, "Wait, what man are you talking about?" And he told me. When he'd pull into the car park and come around the corner, he'd sometimes see a man standing outside his apartment door. Shadowy, no clear features, but unmistakably looking right at him. Then the man would turn and walk straight through the door. And this is the detail that really hit me. Eli said that whenever he saw the man, he'd instantly know I wasn't inside the apartment yet. So for half a year, we'd both been seeing the same figure, describing him the same way, feeling the same unease, getting that same impression of him wanting to get inside before we got too close. We tried to come up with explanations. Light angles, reflections, exhaustion, coincidence, suggestion, anything. Nothing held up. And we kept seeing him until the day Eli moved out. The second place, the boy on the stairs. The next year, 2004, Eli and I moved into a different place together. This 3-story house with a layout that felt wrong even when nothing strange was happening. When you walked in from the street, you immediately had to go up a flight of stairs to reach the main level. Then, right at the top, the first door on the right led into the kitchen. And inside the kitchen there was another staircase that went up again, to my bedroom. So the kitchen basically sat right beside this second stairwell, and you'd always have to turn your body toward it, almost brushing past it, to go further into the house. I first saw him just a few weeks after we moved in. I'd gotten home in the evening, came in the front door, walked up the first flight of stairs, and turned right into the kitchen. And out of the corner of my eye, right there on the next flight of stairs, I saw a boy sitting on the steps. And it wasn't like the shadow man. This wasn't vague. This wasn't maybe. I could see him. He looked around 9 years old. Blonde hair, a red and white striped shirt, khaki shorts, bare feet. He was perched on the step like he'd been waiting, leaning forward slightly, smiling like he was amused to see me. And the worst part was how real he seemed. Not foggy, not translucent, not eerie in a movie way. Just a boy, looking at me through the banister rails. I startled so hard I almost stumbled. And when I turned my head to look directly at him, there was nobody there. This didn't happen every day, more like once a month, always evenings, always when I was turning into that kitchen. But every single time it happened, it scared the hell out of me. Not because he did anything. He never moved toward me, never spoke, never changed expression, but because my brain could not reconcile how vivid he was with how empty the stairs became the second I looked straight at him. And again, I kept it to myself. Because what do you even say? Hey, just so you know, there's a smiling child that appears on the stairs sometimes. No thanks. Until the day Eli and I got home at the same time. I walked in ahead of him, went up the first flight, and turned right into the kitchen. I saw the boy. I jumped, same as always. And Eli, right behind me, went, "Why did you just jump?" I tried to play it off. I sat at the kitchen table and said something vague like, "It's nothing. It's just, sometimes." And he cut in immediately, like he'd been waiting for me to finally say it. "You see the boy on the stairs." I just stared at him, and I asked him to describe the boy. 9-ish, blonde hair, red and white striped shirt, big smile. Exactly what I saw. We lived there for 2 years, and I kept seeing him. And I want to be really clear. I didn't want to. I tried to science it away. I removed anything reflective from the kitchen. I changed the lighting. I even put a brighter light directly over the spot to kill any shadows or weird angles. None of it mattered. And honestly, if Eli hadn't been right behind me that night, if he hadn't heard the fear in my reaction, I think I would have carried that one alone too, because I still don't have an explanation. Just two places, two figures, and the uncomfortable fact that the evidence includes more than just me.